The story opens with a close-up on the eye of a young boy, Azumi Riku. He's panting, his hair flying wildly, suggesting he's in the midst of a frantic or terrifying experience. The scene shifts to two men, a yakuza with spiky hair named Takarazawa and his bald associate. Takarazawa angrily shouts for someone named Azumi, demanding he come out. They walk down a grim apartment hallway, banging on a door plastered with notices. With a powerful kick, Takarazawa smashes the door open. He smirks, telling his associate that he heard noises from inside, determined to find the person he's looking for. They enter a filthy, trash-strewn apartment. The scene is one of utter squalor. Undeterred, Takarazawa continues to pound on an inner door, calling out the name Azumi as he searches the premises. Inside, a horrifying sight awaits. Riku's father, Azumi, is hanging from the ceiling, having taken his own life. In a shocking display, young Riku is methodically punching his deceased father's body. Riku continues to strike the corpse, panting with exertion, his face a mask of detached focus. Takarazawa and his partner can only stare in stunned silence, shocked by the boy's disturbing actions. Takarazawa breaks the silence, asking Riku what he is doing. Without missing a beat, Riku looks up with an innocent expression and replies with a chillingly casual tone, the usual uncle. When asked why he's hitting his dead father, Riku explains his reasoning. He says he found him like this after school and thought he'd try hitting him back for all the times it had happened before, revealing a long history of abuse. Hearing the boy's justification, Takarazawa reacts with sudden violence, landing a powerful punch that sends Riku flying across the room. The impact is brutal, knocking the boy to the floor. But instead of continuing the assault, Takarazawa begins an impromptu boxing lesson. He tells the bleeding boy that his punch was all wrong and proceeds to teach him the proper form for a jab, instructing him on stance, guard, and protecting his vital points. To demonstrate real power, Takarazawa unleashes a devastating straight punch, not on the boy, but on the hanging corpse. The force of the blow sends the body swinging violently, showing Riku what a true punch can do. As Takarazawa yells to unleash the cannon, Riku, still on the floor with blood dripping from his nose, stares with wide, captivated eyes. A new world of strength and technique is opening up before him amidst the tragedy. The commotion finally alerts the neighbors. A woman's scream echoes from the hallway, and startled faces peek out. Takarazawa curses, realizing he shouldn't be touching the corpse, as the situation spirals out of control. While his associate panics over the neighbors, Takarazawa calmly orders him to contact their company regarding Azumi. He then turns back to Riku, his focus unbroken. A dark stain on his pants reveals he was so startled earlier that he wet himself. Takarazawa grabs Riku, forcing him to face the hanging body of his father. He delivers another harsh lesson, telling the boy to look carefully, because this is how the loser looks like. The word loser hangs in the air, echoing in Riku's mind. He stares blankly at the gruesome sight, the image of his father's demise and Takara's brutal words burning into his memory. Outside, as a crowd gathers, Takarazawa smokes a cigarette. His associate calls Riku a crazy kid, but Takarazawa corrects him, explaining that the boy wasn't raised with love and had to endure abuse, so he doesn't understand normal feelings. Takarazawa lets out a slight smirk, reflecting on the brat. He recalls Riku clenching his small fist, a sign of budding determination that has clearly left an impression on the seasoned yakuza. The scene transitions. After the day's traumatic events, Riku is now seated in a vehicle, quietly holding a funerary box containing his father's ashes, driving through the city. Riku sits beside his mother, Haruko. With a vulnerable expression, he confesses the truth. He wanted to live with her. Her face, however, remains distant and unreadable. As they ride in a taxi, Riku desperately pleads his case. He promises to study hard and not be a nuisance, begging her not to hate him, wondering if his best efforts will ever be good enough for her. His mother asks him a chilling question. Do you want to come over to my place, no matter what? The question hangs in the air as a brief memory surfaces, a time when she held his hand as a small child, a stark contrast to her current coldness. When his mother asks, "Really?" Riku simply replies yes. The reflection of the city passes over her detached face as the taxi continues on, driving toward an uncertain future. The story then cuts to the place they are heading, a dark and squalid room where a new, menacing figure is waiting. He is an emaciated man with a tribal tattoo, Korea, who sits with a wicked grin, clearly a drug addict biding his time. Soon, Riku and his mother arrive at their destination. Korea greets them at the door, his eyes immediately fixing on the boy with contempt. Haruku, he draws menacingly at Riku's mother. "So you brought the brat after all?" Riku can only stare back, his face a mask of pure terror at his new reality. Riku watches, confused, as his mother desperately begs Korea for something. Korea coolly states that he doesn't mind Riku's presence as long as he isn't a bother. Riku's mother, with tears in her eyes, continues to plead, revealing the depths of her addiction and desperation right in front of her horrified son. Korea holds up a small baggie of white powder, asking Riku's mother if she wants it. Her eyes widen with a desperate craving, recognizing the usual stuff. Riku can only look on, frozen in horror at the transaction unfolding before him. A series of rapid panels captures the intense moment. The mother's face contorted with desperate need, Riku's wide-eyed shock as he begins to understand the situation, and his mother panting, completely consumed by her addiction. Riku is forced to watch as Korea embraces his mother, a clear exchange of the drugs. The onomatopoeia expresses her sigh of relief or pleasure, a sound that lands with traumatic weight on the terrified young boy. The horror is reflected in a close-up of Riku's sweat-drenched, terrified eyes. Below, his mother's pained or ecstatic expression is shown as she gets her fix, the repeated sound effect emphasizing the scarring impact this moment has on Riku. Suddenly, Riku snaps. With a scream of rage and despair, he throws a glass bottle, shattering it against the wall. He's been pushed past his breaking point by the sight of his mother's degradation. Korea, enraged by the outburst, grabs a kettle of boiling water. Pinning Riku to the floor, he snarls that brats should stand aside and shut up, threatening to pour the scalding water on the boy. The apartment descends into violent chaos. Instead of pouring the water on Riku, Korea brutally smashes the hot kettle over another man's head. Riku, splattered with blood, watches in terror as Korea then attacks another person, his rampage out of control. Covered in blood, Riku stares at a grotesque sight. A body, possibly dead, wrapped tightly in a futon and covered in what appears to be a swarm of insects. A single, blood-streaked eye stares blankly from the bundle, a vision of pure horror. Terrified, Riku scrambles backward onto a bed, trying to get away from the horrifying bundle. The room is infested with roaches, crawling all over the floor, the walls, and the shrouded body. Riku falls back onto the bed, letting out a silent scream of absolute terror as the roaches swarm around him. The horror of his new reality completely overwhelms him. Amidst the chaos, with his mother collapsed on the floor, Korea paces nervously. He mutters to himself in frustration, complaining that he should have thrown the body out by now, but that it's too much to handle. Riku walks past in a daze. In a moment of terrifying clarity, Riku recalls his mother's question from the taxi. "Do you really want to come over to my place?" He looks at her collapsed form, then at the dead body, and the horrifying truth dawns on him. I'll be killed. He starts to back away in fear. Survival instinct kicks in. Riku makes a desperate dash for the door. Korea, seeing the boy trying to escape, immediately gives chase, lunging to grab him. As he faces this new threat, Takazawa's words echo in his mind. Look carefully, Riku. This is how the loser looks like. The image of his hanged father flashes before his eyes, fueling a new kind of resolve on his blood and tear-streaked face. With a primal scream, Riku declares, I don't want that. He refuses to become a loser like his father. He clenches his small, bloody fist, no longer a passive victim, but a cornered animal ready to fight back. A flash of imagery depicts Riku in a boxing ring, his fist connecting squarely with an opponent's jaw. It's a symbolic vision of the fighting spirit that has just been awakened within him. The scene flashes back to the past, revealing younger, triumphant Takazawa Kyusuke in his prime. He stands in the boxing ring, championship belt around his waist, celebrating a KO victory that brought him one step closer to a world title. Cutting back to Takazawa's present, he's with his boss, who's watching a replay of that old fight. The boss mockingly asks if he taught the crazy brat boxing. Takazawa denies it, saying he only showed him a 1-2 punch, but admits that something about the boy worries him. His boss asks what could possibly be worrying. Takazawa explains, his mind going back to the moment he found Riku punching his dead father, a scene that clearly stuck with him. Takazawa reveals his disturbing realization. Even without any training, when Riku was hitting his father, it was as if the boy instinctively knew all of the body's vital points. He recognized a terrifying, natural talent for violence. Back in the heat of the moment, fueled by adrenaline and a desperate will to live, Riku puts Takazawa's lesson into practice. He charges forward, launching himself at the much larger Kiriya. Riku's punch connects. With shocking precision, he strikes Kiriya directly in the eye. Kiriya's face registers pure shock and pain from the unexpectedly effective blow. The force of the blow to his eye causes Kiriya to lose his balance, his legs buckling beneath him. He stumbles backward, completely caught off guard. On the floor, Riku watches, surprised for a moment by the effect of his own punch, before his survival instinct takes over completely. This is his chance. As Kiriya reels, Riku scrambles and grabs a heavy glass ashtray, his face a mask of primal fear and rage. On the floor, Kiriya recovers enough to scream that he'll kill the brat. But Riku, armed and cornered, screams back with equal fury, "I'll kill you," a vow he is about to fulfill. The aftermath is brutal. A news-style caption explains the events. A man, Kiriya, was killed in his apartment. The suspect, a young boy, was found at the scene, covered in blood. The image shows Riku, in a trance-like state, repeatedly striking the downed Kiriya with a bloody ashtray. The story of that Azumi kid quickly spreads. At his former school, an empty desk sits as a stark reminder of his absence. Classmates whisper that the official story of a school transfer is a lie. They've seen news online and know the truth. He's a murderer. The gossip continues, with one student remarking they always thought Riku was a creepy kid. The camera pans across a wall of New Year's calligraphy wishes, a symbol of innocent dreams, now contrasted with the dark path Riku has taken. The scene shifts to an institution, where Riku is being questioned by a doctor and a serious-looking young woman. Riku, with a calm and detached demeanor, confesses to the crime, stating as a simple fact, "Yes, that's right. I hit him in the head again and again with an ashtray." The woman turns her attention to Riku's mother, who is also present, asking why she couldn't stop things from happening. Riku avoids the conversation, turning to look out the window with a distant expression. Riku explains his actions with chillingly simple logic. "If I hadn't killed him, I would have been killed." A flash of Kiriya's menacing eye serves as a stark reminder of the mortal danger he was in, justifying his actions in his own mind. With a child's innocence, Riku asks if he's going to jail. The adults explain the complex legal process ahead, a trial, an investigation, and possibly community service. They also mention that talks are underway to send him to a special orphanage that can handle his situation. Instead of worrying about himself, Riku's first question is about his mother. The woman introduces herself as Ms. Ihara, a social worker, and tells Riku she will be there to take care of his heart through this difficult time. Ms. Ihara gently apologizes, explaining that Riku's mother is not in a good condition. A disturbing flashback image shows his mother being held down, illustrating the abuse and addiction that have left her unable to care for him or herself. As they walk down a sterile hospital corridor, Ms. Ihara promises that they will go to meet his mother together once she has recovered. Riku listens silently, his expression somber as he processes another layer of loss. Elsewhere in the same hospital, Takarazawa lounges in a waiting area, idly scrolling through his phone. He reads a news report about the death of Yakuza Hazakura Korea, noting the discovery of cannabis at the scene. Nearby, nurses admire him, commenting on how stylish he looks. Just as he finishes reading the article, Takarazawa looks up. He spots Riku walking down the corridor with Mizuhara and the doctor. Their paths are about to unexpectedly cross. Takarazawa calls out cheerfully, "Yo boya!" His sudden, loud greeting startles everyone. Riku, Mizuhara, and the doctor all turn in shock to see him. With a wide grin, Takarazawa holds up a paper bag, announcing, "I've brought you a gift for getting out of the hospital dash." His casual demeanor is completely at odds with the tense situation. Mizuhara and the doctor immediately move to protect Riku, telling the suspicious-looking man to stay back. Riku, however, recognizes him and quietly says his name, Tokuruza-san. Riku reassures the worried adults, telling Mizuhara that Takarazawa is an acquaintance. He politely asks for a moment to speak with him alone, stepping toward the man who taught him his first punch. Takarazawa leans in, a sinister, knowing smirk on his face. "Can't be. You're the one that did him in," he whispers, miming a punch to confirm his suspicion that Riku used the technique he taught. In a surprising turn, Riku responds not with fear, but with sincere gratitude. He gives Takarazawa a deep, respectful bow and says, "Thank you very much for the punch. I was able to do it thanks to you." Takarazawa is taken aback. He clarifies the sequence of events. Riku first struck Korea's chin with a punch, then finished him with a blunt object. His expression hardens as he grasps the full gravity of the situation. The realization hits Takarazawa hard. The simple boxing lesson he gave has implicated him in a murder. He clenches his fist, staring at the hand that taught the boy to punch, muttering, "So I became involved with a murder, huh?" In a sudden explosion of rage, Takarazawa smashes his fist into a glass-covered painting on the wall, shattering it. He whirls on Riku, screaming, "You idiot!" The sudden violence shocks everyone. Furious, Takarazawa gets right in Riku's face, delivering a bizarre moral lesson. "Why'd you rely on something like a blunt object?" he yells. "If you must kill, kill with a fist." This is his twisted boxer's code of honor. As Mizuhara watches in confusion, Takarazawa continues his strange lecture, telling Riku that his hand is meant for hitting back. Abruptly, he calms down, turns to a hospital staffer, and politely apologizes for the broken glass, offering to pay for it. His anger suddenly replaced by a sharp curiosity, Takarazawa holds out his open hand. "I've become interested in your punches," he says, inviting Riku to hit it. He wants to see the boy's raw talent for himself, even as Riku admits his previous actions were pure instinct. Riku hesitantly raises his hands, mimicking a boxer's guard as best he can. As he prepares to strike, Takarazawa's experienced eyes immediately notice a key detail in the boy's natural stance. Left-handed, he observes, his interest piqued even further. As the adults try to hurry him along, Riku throws a punch at Takarazawa's outstretched hand. Despite his small size, the impact is sharp and powerful, surprising the onlookers. Takarazawa corrects Riku's form, pushing his head down. "Lower your chin," he commands, before giving him a brutal training plan. 10,000 1-2 punches a day for the rest of his life. This, he says, is the path to a better life. Mizuhara insists their time is up, pulling Riku away. Takarazawa nonchalantly agrees to leave, but not before giving Riku one last piece of dark advice, muttering that his opponent was just a drugged and shitty lowlife anyway. As he walks away, Takarazawa offers a final word of encouragement. "Just for the courage you had in order to punch, you deserve my praise," he says. "That is an important thing, Riku." Riku and Mizuhara watch the enigmatic figure depart. Safely back in the car, Mizuhara tries to comfort Riku, reassuring him that they will visit his mother together next time. Riku stares out the window, his expression blank, as he processes the tumultuous events. Mizuhara continues her attempts to comfort him, talking cheerfully about the orphanage and how he'll make friends. But her words seem to have little effect on the silent, withdrawn boy. Suddenly, Riku's facade cracks. He begins to tremble, the trauma finally surfacing. Noticing his distress, Mizuhara instinctively pulls him into a protective hug. With tears in her own eyes, she holds him close, whispering, there, everything's all right now." Surprised by the unexpected display of affection and warmth, Rika looks up at her, utterly bewildered. Her words of empathy, "It must have been hard, huh?" finally break through his walls. For the first time, someone is acknowledging his pain. The simple kindness in her voice makes his eyes widen in disbelief. Her words trigger a flood of traumatic memories, starting with the image of his own father, his face twisted in rage, beating him mercilessly. This was his version of hard. The horrific flashbacks continue, showing him lying broken and bloodied on the floor of Korea's apartment. The images of the violence he both endured and committed come rushing back. He relives the entire nightmare, his mother's desperation, Korea's drug-fueled rampage, the act of killing a man. The full weight of his recent past crashes down on him. The dam finally breaks. Held in Mizuhara's comforting embrace, Riku's composure shatters and he begins to cry, finally releasing the pent-up fear, pain, and horror. As Takarazawa walks away from the hospital, Riku trembles in Mizuhara's arms in the car, completely overwhelmed by the first act of kindness he's received in a long time. Takarazawa pauses, flexing the hand that Riku struck. He smirks to himself, impressed by the raw power he felt. That kid's punch, he thinks, it stings. As Riku buries his face in Mizuhara's shoulder, finally allowing himself to be vulnerable, Takarazawa feels the impact of the boy's punch still reverberating through his hand, a testament to Riku's latent potential. While Riku sobs, releasing all his pain, the camera focuses on the gift bag from Takarazawa. Inside is a brand new pair of boxing gloves, a symbol of the path that has been laid out for him. The scene transitions to night. Riku arrives at a large, foreboding industrial complex under a crescent moon. This is the orphanage, his new home. Meanwhile, in a different part of the industrial complex called the Kanagi facility, Yakuza members are seen conducting their business, showing that this orphanage is intertwined with the criminal underworld. A sinister-looking man with braces reads a report and speaks Riku's name, Azumi Riku. He hangs up the phone, ominously stating he'll call back when he's done. Danger is already closing in on Riku's new location. In his new room, Riku clutches the boxing gloves Takarazawa gave him. A menacing voice echoes, "I've found where you are staying at," signaling that another hand of evil is extending towards him. The first chapter comes to a close. The scene shifts to a quiet, contemplative moment. A lone figure practices shadow boxing, the rhythmic sounds cutting through the silence. It's a stark contrast to the chaotic violence that has defined Riku's life. A bloody, bruised fist is shown in extreme close-up, a powerful and raw symbol. The single word encapsulates the central theme of Riku's world, violence. The scene shifts to a reflection on the dual nature of hands. They are described as what bring people together for carrying, applauding, and praying. But as images of violence flash by, people fighting, Riku being beaten, the reflection notes that hands also hurt people, and even yourself. It all starts with the shape of a hand. The thought concludes with a scene of extreme brutality. A man lies beaten in a dirty alley. In a moment of profound irony, the text accompanying this grim image suggests that people's hands are, in fact, filled with kindness, setting a deeply cynical tone about the nature of human action. The scene shifts to the orphanage, where Mizuhara is having story time with the children. The book she has chosen for the week is titled People's Hands, directly tying into the manga's theme about the duality of human action. While the other children are engrossed in the story, Riku sits apart from the group, quietly clutching the boxing gloves Takarazawa gave him. He seems distant, but is still listening to Ms. Ihara's gentle voice. After story time, a curious girl approaches Riku and asks about the gloves he always is hanging around his neck. Riku is flustered by the attention, unsure how to respond. In the background, Ms. Ihara watches with a hopeful smile. Riku explains that the gloves are something special, his very first treasure. The other children gather around, their curiosity piqued. A girl touches one of the gloves, exclaiming that it's soft and cute, breaking the ice. For the first time, Riku is surrounded not by violence, but by curious children. A staff member observes that Azumi-kun seems to finally be getting used to his new home. He is slowly, tentatively, becoming part of the group. Elsewhere, Ms. Ihara discusses Riku with another staff member. The topic of the suspicious man at the hospital, Takarazawa, comes up, showing that his unsettling appearance left a lasting impression. The other caregiver suggests that the violent-looking Takarazawa might be the source of what she perceives as Riku's aggression. Ms. Ihara listens thoughtfully, her expression serious as she considers the man's influence. Ms. Ihara disagrees with the assessment. "No," she says, her conviction clear. "That child was just scared." Clutching the children's book, she reaffirms her duty. "We, the adults, have to make sure that he's safe." Miles away, Takarazawa is sitting in a car when he suddenly lets out a massive sneeze, a classic trope suggesting that someone, somewhere, is talking about him. Night falls on the orphanage, and rain begins to pour. Inside the dormitory, the other children are fast asleep in their bunk beds. One bed, however, lies empty. Riku is nowhere to be seen. Ms. Ihara finds Riku sitting alone outside on a covered veranda, staring out into the rain. She gently asks him if he's planning to practice, but her tone suggests she knows he's up to something else. Riku is startled by her appearance. She sits down next to him, her expression a mixture of concern and understanding, creating a quiet, intimate moment between the two. Ms. Ihara confronts him directly, but gently. "You were going to leave and try to go to your mother's place, weren't you?" Caught. Riku can only respond with a quiet yes. She thanks him for his honesty, but firmly reminds him that he can't simply leave. When she asks if he hates it at the orphanage, Riku immediately and vehemently denies it. "No," he exclaims, "I couldn't hate it here. There's no way." Riku struggles to put his feelings into words, explaining that his new life feels like a dream because, for the first time, people are actually nice to him. He dejectedly refers to himself as a worm, prompting a firm but gentle correction from Ms. Ihara. "Don't call yourself a worm." As the rain falls on a bed of flowers, Ms. Ihara offers some wisdom about the nature of human connection. She explains that people connect more than he thinks, and that these bonds become meaningful, even after experiencing betrayal. She pats his head, telling him he's a good child because he understands pain, and that he should have more confidence. She renews her promise to help his mother get better so they can be reunited, unseen by them. A sinister eye watches from the darkness. The peaceful moment is violently shattered. A huge shovel smashes into the flower bed right in front of them, sending dirt and petals flying. Their sanctuary has been invaded. Two figures emerge from the rainy darkness. It's the man with the braces and his associate, the Yakuza seeking revenge. They stand over Riku and Ms. Ihara with menacing intent. The man with the braces confronts them, his voice dripping with menace. Ms. Ihara instinctively tries to shield Riku, but the man calls out the boy's name, making it clear who they've come for. His associate, wielding the shovel, grins with sadistic glee. "Let's play," he says, raising the weapon. Ms. Ihara's eyes widen in absolute terror as she realizes the mortal danger they are in. The man swings the heavy shovel. In a split second, Riku reacts, pushing Ms. Ihara out of the path of the blow. He shouts her name as he sacrifices himself to save her. The metal shovel connects squarely with Riku's body, sending him flying backward with a sickening impact. The force of the blow is brutal and unforgiving. As Riku lies stunned on the ground, the man with the shovel prepares for a second strike. Meanwhile, the man with the braces grabs Ms. Ihara, pulling her back by her hair to prevent her from intervening. As one man holds Ms. Ihara back by her hair, The other relentlessly beats Riku with the shovel. The Yakuza mockingly tells the boy that he shouldn't be dragging his teacher into his mess, cruelly isolating him in his suffering. As he lies beaten on the ground, Riku remembers Ms. Ihara's kind words about him being a good child who knows pain. But the Yakuza holding her hostage mockingly refutes this, snarling that such sentiment is useless in their cruel world. His vision blurring, Riku spots one of his fallen boxing gloves. At that moment, Takazawa's voice echoes in his memory, a powerful reminder. A hand is there to fight back with. Suddenly, a car screeches onto the scene, its headlights cutting through the rain and blinding the attackers. It's Takarazawa. The Yakuza with the braces freezes, enraged and shocked that their revenge has been interrupted. Drenched by the rain, Takarazawa calmly wraps his hands, his face a mask of cold fury. He is preparing to unleash his own brand of justice. In an explosion of glass and violence, Takarazawa launches himself at the car, shattering the windshield. He then delivers a devastating punch to the man with the braces, his fist connecting with brutal force. From the ground, bruised and bleeding, Riku watches in stunned awe as his mentor, Takarazawa, single-handedly takes on his attackers. The Yakuza has become his unlikely savior. Takarazawa moves with the fluid grace and power of a professional boxer. He effortlessly dodges a wild swing of the shovel and counters with a precise, devastating punch, ending the fight in an instant. As he watches Takarazawa fight, Riku finally understands the true meaning of his words. A hand isn't just for defense, it's a weapon to fight back with. He is witnessing the true power of a master's fist. With both attackers neutralized, Takarazawa stands over their beaten bodies, annoyed at having been dragged into the conflict. He looks at his own wrapped fist and declares, "The hand I want is a fist." Cradling the unconscious Ms. Ihara, Riku looks up at his savior. His mind is made up. He knows what he must do and what he must ask for. Takarazawa. He begins the way to punch. With tears and blood streaming down his face, Riku makes his desperate plea. "Please teach me more ways to punch," he cries out. "I want fists like yours." In this moment of despair, he finds his purpose. He confesses the source of his desperation, blaming his own weakness for Ms. Ihara getting hurt. "I can't stay weak," he sobs, clutching her body. He is determined to become strong enough to protect the people he cares about. Takarazawa gives his final answer. He tells Riku that he is a Yakuza, not a trainer, and that every person's fist is different. He gives the boy a destination, Baba Gym. "Find your own fist there, Riku." And with that, he sets the boy on his path. The scene opens in a bustling red light district, with Takarazawa Kaisuke leading a young Azumi Riku through the neon-lit streets. As Kaisuke smokes, Riku looks around with a mix of wonder and apprehension at the provocative advertisements. Two women passing by are shocked to see a child in such a place, commenting on how cute Riku is. Riku himself seems overwhelmed, his eyes wide as he takes in the unfamiliar environment. As they walk down a street littered with trash, Kaisuke and Riku draw stares for passers-by. The two continue on their way, a stark contrast to the shady world around them. Riku looks up at his guardian, asking, "Mr. Takarazawa, is there really a gym in this sort of place?" Kaisuke exhales smoke, a smirk on his face as he replies that they're almost there and that the place brings back memories of when he used to make people piss blood. Riku's attention is caught by a figure in an alley. It's a homeless man, sleeping amidst a pile of garbage. Both Kaisuke and Riku pause to look at the man. Kaisuke tells Riku to watch closely, explaining that there are lots of different kinds of fighters here. Riku listens intently, his expression serious as he tries to understand the lesson. The mood shifts as a person is thrown into a pile of trash bags. Crows scatter from the sudden disturbance, and one lets out a caw as it flies away, its dark form silhouetted against the sky. A couple of Yakuza members are seen roughing up a man on the ground. They threaten him, saying if he ever rummages through their garbage again, they'll break all his teeth. The victim, who turns out to be the same homeless man from before, finds a nearly empty bottle. Kayasuk recognizes him, calling him Baba President, and remarking that he's a drunk as always. The man's insult, calling him Baba, old hag, seems to get a reaction. Bloodied and bruised, the man, Baba Kichimura, looks up and recognizes his old acquaintance. With a wide, pained smile, he exclaims, "Kayasuk, it's you. You damn prodigy." The scene shifts to the entrance of the rundown Baba boxing gym. Laughter can be heard from inside the dilapidated building. Inside, Kayasuk and Baba Kichimura sit and talk over drinks. Baba reminisces about Kayasuk's time as the king of the rookies, recalling how he got stabbed by a girl just 2 days before a big event. Meanwhile, Riku stares at an old, faded poster on the wall. It features a younger, fiercer Kayasuk in his boxing prime. Baba looks on, sighing that it's been a while. Baba Kichimura turns his attention to Kayasuk, asking what the occasion is for him to return after 8 long years. Riku listens quietly in the background. Kayasuk gives a confident, knowing smirk. The panel then cuts to a close-up of a pair of black boxing gloves, hinting at his intentions. Now wearing the boxing gloves, Riku stands with a determined gaze. He formally introduces himself. "I'm Azumi Riku. I would like to get stronger." Baba Kichimura looks Riku over, asking if an orphan child wants to become a boxer. Riku resolutely answers yes. Baba takes a drink, seemingly pondering the request. Suddenly, Baba's demeanor changes. With a furious expression, he slaps Riku across the face, shouting, "There's no way, dumbass." Baba continues his assault, yelling that he's seen countless brats like Riku, and they make him sick. He lands another punch, saying it's already over for someone without natural talent. Kayasuk looks on from the side as Riku falls to the ground, bleeding. Baba rants, filled with despair and frustration. He says he doesn't want to deal with another brat following in Kayasuk's footsteps, whose hopes and dreams will inevitably be crushed by the effort required. Kayasuk, unimpressed, tells Baba to look behind him. He remarks that while the gym has gone downhill since he left, there's no one better than him at making dreams happen. To Baba's surprise, Riku is back on his feet. With a fierce look in his eyes, he lunges forward and lands a clean punch on the old coach's face. Riku lets out a furious scream as he connects the punch, shocking Baba with his tenacity and refusal to give up. Baba calls Riku a brat as the boy relentlessly presses his attack, pushing the old man back. Despite the beating he's taken, Riku's eyes burn with an unyielding determination, his small body a whirlwind of motion. Fueled by a desperate rage, Riku continues to swing wildly at Baba Kichimura, screaming "shit!" with every blow, his small fist crashing against the old man's guard. Tears and blood mix on Riku's face as he screams, the raw emotion triggering a traumatic flashback of his father abusing his mother. As Baba looks on in shock, Riku's outstretched hand in the present mirrors his mother's desperate reach in the past. Baba easily blocks Riku's next punch, telling him he's not ready yet. But he's impressed, admitting that Riku is the first person to come at him with such ferocity since Kayasuk. He looks down at the tearful boy and asks, "You really want to become a boxer?" Through his tears, Riku looks down at his gloved hand, the symbol of the power he's witnessed. With trembling conviction, he says, "I want a fist." A dark, intense aura explodes from Riku as he makes his vow, his voice filled with the pain of his past and the hope for his future. "I'll get stronger and fix myself." Stunned by the boy's raw declaration, Baba turns to Kayasuk and asks, "What the hell is this brat?" Kayasuk, however, just watches with a calm, knowing expression, taking a drag from his cigarette. Baba realizes the depth of Riku's despair. He understands that the boy, having already seen hell, was desperately seeking a spider web, a thin thread of hope to climb out of his suffering. It was instinct that brought Riku here, a gamble to find that thread. Kayasuk smirks, seeing the potential. He suggests to Baba that perhaps he can take that web, Riku's raw talent and desperation, and ride it all the way to the top. Baba listens, a thoughtful expression on his face. Baba agrees to continue the training, but not without teasing Kayasuk, asking if his interest is because he sees himself as the brat's father. Kaisuke is taken aback by the comment, a rare crack in his cool demeanor. Having made his decision, Baba tells Kaisuke not to bother contacting the orphanage. He declares that this amateur, Riku, will be the one to climb. In the boy's desperate eyes, Baba has found the gym's new spiderweb. With a bloody nose, but a look of resolve, Riku stands his ground. Kaisuke turns to leave, telling him to start coming to the gym tomorrow and not to worry about the tuition fee. Riku watches him go, surprised by the sudden acceptance. The scene shifts to a young girl with pigtails, Naeshiro, watching other children play. Her friends mention that Riku left again, noting that he only shows up occasionally. It's clear Naeshiro was waiting for him. When her friends ask why she's looking for Riku, Naeshiro blushes and says it's no reason. She quietly reflects that ever since their teacher, Ihara-sensei, left, she has a feeling that something inside Riku has changed. A violent scene unfolds as a man, likely Riku's father Azumi, abuses a prostitute, demanding money. In the background, Riku is seen running towards the confrontation. Riku intervenes, grabbing the man's arm to stop the assault. He may be just a child, but he stands up to protect the woman, showing the first signs of his protective instincts. Later, Riku arrives back at the gym. Baba scolds him for being late and makes him run an extra lap. The woman he saved, along with others, welcome him back, showing that the gym has become his new home. The chapter ends. A time skip has occurred. A group of delinquents are bullying a high school girl in an underpass. They throw water on her and take pictures, laughing at her humiliation. The girl is Naeshiro, now a high school student. She's on her knees, soaked and terrified, as her tormentors loom over her. The bullies demand she give them back the money that went to the orphanage, taunting her about her past. Naeshiro coughs, unable to respond. The leader of the delinquents grabs Naeshiro's face, sneering at her for living with a killer. In the background, Kaisuke happens to be passing by, observing the scene. A figure emerges from the shadows of the underpass. It's Riku, now a high school student himself. He has grown, but his eyes carry the same intensity. Everyone, including a shocked Naeshiro, turns to face him. A close-up on Riku's face reveals a cold, hardened expression. The innocent boy is gone, replaced by a young man who has clearly endured much over the years. As Riku calmly walks toward them, the lead bully's bravado vanishes, replaced by fear. He's here, he stammers. Naeshiro looks up, her face a mixture of relief and sorrow. Riku leads Naeshiro away from the bullies, his silence more intimidating than any threat. As they walk off, one of the onlookers whispers, "A murderer," makes me sick, highlighting the dark reputation that follows Riku everywhere. A concerned classmate calls out, asking Riku if he's still training at the gym. At the same time, the belligerent gang leader approaches a terrified Naeshiro, trying to proposition her by suggesting she won't have to work if she becomes his friend, alluding to her precarious situation. Naeshiro tries to bring Riku back to reality, reminding him that they're already juniors in high school. In 1 year, she pleads, you won't be able to stay at the orphanage. You have to think about your future. Riku turns away, his expression pained. He apologizes to Naeshiro, telling her that she just ends up in trouble because of him and that she should leave him alone. As Riku walks away, he states that he has no interest in the bullies who harass them. Naeshiro protests, yelling that he can't just treat her like that after helping her. I can't just leave you all alone, she insists. Naeshiro brings up a painful subject, asking Riku if he shouldn't go see his mother, reminding him he's only visited once. The question triggers a flashback to his mother's terrified face, and Riku coldly brushes her off, saying, I have more important things to do right now. Shocked, Naeshiro questions what could be more important than his own mother. She reflects that Riku changed ever since he started going to the gym and secluding himself, pinpointing the change to a traumatic rainy night when he and Ihara-sensei returned, beaten up. The scene cuts to what Riku considers more important, his intense training. At the gym, He relentlessly pounds a water-filled heavy bag, each punch sending a spray of water into the air. His focus is absolute. Baba Kichimura and another man watch from the sidelines as Riku spars in the ring. He has just knocked down his opponent, a boxer who is noted to be almost at the B rank level, showing Riku's formidable progress. Baba gives Riku a critique, telling him he still has openings in his guard and a long way to go. He then shifts to a more personal topic, telling Riku to go make up with Naeshiro, showing a fatherly concern for the boy's life outside the ring. Naeshiro's question about his mother echoes in Riku's mind. A flashback shows a younger Riku at a visitation center, being announced to his mother, Haruko-san. The memory continues as a younger Riku, with a small bandage on his cheek, comes face to face with his mother. She stares back, her eyes wide with a look of pure, undiluted terror as she whispers his name. His mother's horror escalates. The sight of her own son triggers a traumatic memory, and she begins to scream, her mind seemingly lost in a past terror. Panicked, his mother scrambles away, yelling at him, "Don't come any closer. Get away." The rejection leaves Riku stunned and heartbroken. In the present, he walks away, haunted by the painful memory. Back at the gym, Baba asks Riku if his goal was to get stronger to earn praise from his mother. Riku, his face hardened, dismisses the idea, stating that he's boxing because he believes it's something he can do. Baba looks at him intently, asking if he has any other options, any insurance on life. Riku's determined gaze shows that for him, there is no other path but this. Riku's mind flashes back to the violence and trauma of his childhood, the source of his mother's fear and his own pain. For him, the concept of life is not a given, but a struggle. Running down the sterile hallway of the institution, away from his mother's screams, Riku has an epiphany. His life isn't something he was born with. It's something that came together with a jab, something he must forge with his own fists. The scene returns to the present day at the gym. Riku is wrapping his hands when Kaisuke appears. Looking out the window, Kaisuke states, "So it's tomorrow." The protest. Kaisuke leans against the window frame, a cigarette in his mouth, looking cool and confident. He has been observing Riku's progress, and the time has come for the next step. Naeshiro is also at the gym. Kaisuke casually mentions Riku's reckless sparring, prompting a shocked Naeshiro to ask about the protest. Riku calmly confirms, "Tomorrow I'm." With a quiet and unwavering resolve, Riku finishes his sentence, holding his wrapped fist. Going to become a pro boxer. The scene shifts to the orphanage, where Naeshiro tries to study amidst the chaos of younger children playing. Another resident sees Riku heading out and asks where he's going. Naeshiro looks up, telling him, "See you later. Be back soon," her voice tinged with worry. The conflict between Riku's ambition and Naeshiro's concern is revisited. She can't understand his choice, asking, "Choosing boxing over your birth mother? What the hell?" While Riku remains steadfast in his goal to become a pro. As Riku walks away, determined on his path, Naeshiro watches him go. She quietly admits to herself, her expression a mix of frustration and sadness. "I don't understand Riku one bit." The day of the protest arrives. A caption announces, "Riku visits the holy land of boxing." He and Naeshiro are seen walking towards a large, iconic arena, the home of many legendary boxing matches. Inside, Naeshiro and her friend find their seats. They are surprised at how spacious the venue is for the sea-level test takers, noting that the sound will carry well in the quiet hall. The anticipation and excitement begin to build. In the waiting area, a bizarre scene unfolds as an older man with striking facial tattoos massages a young boxer's rear, much to the boxer's dismay. Spectators recognize the man as Shinji, the infamous chief of the Baba Boxing Gym, a place known for producing world champions. With a sinister smile, Shinji adds that while his gym creates champions, it has also effectively crippled countless other boxers in the process, revealing the brutal dark side of their training methods. The legend of the Baba Gym's cruelty is further detailed. The training is so grueling that an average person wouldn't last a month. Rumor has it that decades ago, their methods even forced an undefeated OPBF champion into mysterious retirement. Meanwhile, Riku sits amongst the other applicants, listening as they dismiss the Baba Gym as an outdated relic with no eye for modern youth. He remains silent, his focus entirely on the test ahead. Under the bright, cross-shaped lights of the arena, two applicants spar fiercely. This is the pro test, where hopefuls must prove their worth in the ring. In the stands, Shinji chats with another gym owner, who asks about the boxer Baba brought. Baba himself is screaming wildly from his seat. The man wonders if Riku could be as good as the legendary boxers of the past. Shinji corrects him, saying Riku isn't good, but interesting. He explains he took the kid in on a whim 7 years ago. The other man is confused why a boxer with that much experience is only taking the C-level test. A flashback to Riku's training illustrates Shinji's point. He explains that Riku is the type of fighter whose raw, aggressive style is unsuitable for the amateur circuit. It would fuck him up. He needs to be in the pro world. The flashback continues, showing a younger, bloodied Riku collapsing from exhaustion after a brutal training session. His coach yells at him for getting back in the ring. Kayasuke and another gym member express their concern, saying Baba's methods of teaching a kid to counter without protective gear will break him. Lying on the mat, beaten and bloody, Riku looks up as Baba calmly asks, "Hey kid, you afraid?" Despite the beating, Riku shows no fear. Baba analyzes him, realizing he can't read the boy's heart, but can see his only path is a warped one, forged straight ahead. Seeing this utter lack of fear, he decides to continue the relentless training. Back in the present, a sparring match concludes. The announcer calls a stop to the fight, and then calls for the next match. Applicant number 19 versus applicant number 32, Azumi Riku. In the center of the ring, Riku, wearing number 32, faces his opponent, number 19. The two stand ready for their match to begin. The spectators recognize Riku's opponent. He's a notorious former biker gang member who was scouted by a major gym. They're surprised to see him here, thinking he should be skilled enough to aim for the B-level test. The referee gives his final instructions, telling the boxers not to worry about winning or losing, but to simply use everything they've learned. The opponent breathes heavily, while Riku remains perfectly still and silent. Riku's opponent is disgusted by the amount of blood on the mat. He looks at Riku's beat-up gloves and mistakes his focused silence for fear, thinking Riku is nothing like his old gang members who put their lives on the line. He yells at Riku to get his attention. Filled with contempt and aggression, the former biker stares Riku down, his eyes burning with malice as he snarls, "I'll kill you." The opening bell rings. Riku remains utterly calm, his eye focused and his expression unreadable. The opponent's threat has had no visible effect on him. Riku's mind flashes back to the night he met Kayasuke. He remembers seeing him sitting calmly amidst the bodies of beaten thugs in a bar, a testament to his overwhelming strength. The memory continues with a younger, tearful Riku begging Kayasuke, "Please teach me your ways. I want a fist just like yours, Mr. Takarazawa." Kayasuke recalls Riku's desperate plea to become strong and redo his entire life. It was this desperate plea that started Riku on this path. The moment the fight begins, Riku unleashes a devastating punch that lands squarely on his opponent's nose. A sickening crunch echoes as blood erupts from the impact. The opponent is completely caught off guard. The sound of the impact, like a death rattle, reverberates through the quiet hall, horrifying the audience. But in the stands, Baba Kichimura grins with manic delight, exclaiming, "Nice going, kid." Riku stands calmly, his headgear splattered with his opponent's blood. His performance was so brutally efficient that it prompts the question, "Have you killed before?" The opponent is completely knocked out, his face crushed inside his headgear. The crowd is stunned into silence, whispering in disbelief. Riku, the underdog, has just flattened the guy everyone was watching, instantly shattering all expectations. Walking away from the arena, Naoshiro comments to Riku. They say he's from Baba Gym. The brutal efficiency Riku displayed has clearly left an impression and is now tied to the gym's infamous reputation. Against the backdrop of the city skyline, Riku doesn't respond. Instead, he shadowboxes as they walk, still feeling the adrenaline of the fight and the weight of what he's accomplished. Riku stops and looks at his fist, a look of quiet awe on his face. I did it, he says to himself. With my one right fist, I become a pro boxer. The memory of his past trauma surfaces, reinforcing his conviction. I've got to get strong. If I don't, I'll lose everything. He continues his internal monologue, practicing his stance. I thought if I could become a boxer, just like how Mr. Takarazawa was, then I could change everything about my life, but Riku understands this is only the first step. Just as I imagined, I need to be in more real matches to get a real feeling for it. He concludes, his gaze fixed on the path ahead. The scene shifts to Kaisuke, who is relaxing on a couch, smoking a cigarette while reading a boxing newspaper. The headline is about the lightweight division. An associate sees him and asks if he started buying boxing magazines again. Kaisuke coolly replies that he's just reading one that was left lying around. He then smirks, that little shit, so he picked the lightweight division I was in, huh? Kaisuke reflects on Riku's choice. The lightweight division is one of the most punishing and competitive in the sport. He takes a long drag from his cigarette, thinking, despite that, Riku decided to walk that rough as shit path. Back at school, Riku sits alone in his classroom while his classmates chatter about their future career paths and vocational schools. He seems detached from their everyday concerns. Another student looks at a board full of job postings, lamenting his own future. He thinks about how geniuses who get drafted into pro baseball never have to worry about these things. Must be nice to be able to just do what you like, he sighs. Naoshiro approaches Riku's desk, telling him she's amazed that he's finally started thinking about what comes next. Riku looks up, a bit surprised, admitting it's not like he never gave it a moment's thought. With a hopeful smile, Naoshiro brings up his recent achievement. You passed the boxing test thing, right? She asks. She calls out his name, trying to bridge the distance between them. Blushing and flustered, Naoshiro takes a chance. W, would you like to go out to eat someplace tonight? She asks, explaining it's both a celebratory gesture and an apology for her earlier intrusive comments. Riku is taken aback by her offer. Riku turns his face away, his expression hidden. In a quiet voice, he rejects her offer. I'm sorry, Naoshiro. Naoshiro's hopeful expression falls. I see, she says, trying to save face by reasoning that boxers can't eat too much. She tells him it's okay and begins to head back, her disappointment palpable. As she walks away, Naoshiro sees another couple in the hallway. Her thoughts reveal her frustration and sadness. Can't you skip a single day of boxing? She watches the happy couple walk away hand in hand and wonders if Riku ever even considers having a normal, happy life like his fellow classmates. For his part, Riku just sits at his desk, staring down. The camera pulls back, showing Riku sitting alone in the empty classroom. Naoshiro's narration wonders about his motivations. He just blindly plunged into a life in the boxing world all by himself. What is it he's aiming for exactly? The answer lies in the gym. Riku is shown training relentlessly, sweat pouring from his face as he pounds the heavy bag with everything he has. This is his singular focus. He pushes himself past his limits, gasping and spitting as he trains. In the background, Baba Kichimura sits at his desk, poring over what look like boxing strategy notes, just as focused as a student. Finally, Riku collapses from exhaustion. Slumped on the floor, he calls out to his coach, Boss. Catching his breath, Riku asks if his debut match has been decided yet. Baba, rubbing his temples in frustration, retorts, You're as haughty as ever, brat. Baba explains the reality of the situation. Because Riku used his practical skills to win the test so decisively, other gyms will be on guard, making it difficult to find an opponent. Having started with nothing, Riku is now back to zero with no money and no belt. Baba admits he's surprised, telling Riku that he is truly shaped up to be an honest-to-God pro boxer. What Riku was striving for, once shapeless and abstract, is now becoming real. He says he never thought Riku would quit, but this is beyond his expectations. Baba sighs that this new opportunity will just bring more worry, noting that Riku reminds him of Kayasuke, who came from the same weight class. He then points toward a poster on the wall, his voice serious as he says, "There's something I want in the light division." Riku's gaze follows, landing on the image of a smiling champion holding a belt. Still sitting on the floor, exhausted from his training, Riku looks up at the poster of his mentor. He asks his coach, his voice filled with newfound purpose, the OPBF champion belt, the one that Mr. Takarazawa won. "How can I make it mine?" Baba takes a swig from his drink, looking at Riku with amusement. "What's that?" He scoffs, unimpressed. "What are you prattling on about? You've barely reached your debut match." He tries to temper the boy's ambition with a dose of reality. But seeing the fire in Riku's eyes, Baba grins. "In that case, let's see some more sweat." Riku gets back to his feet, ready to train, and replies with a determined, "Yes, sir." As Riku returns to the heavy bag, Baba watches him, a smirk on his face. "So now you want Kayasuke's old belt? Fucking kid." For Riku, everything has snapped into focus. The road ahead has come into view. The gleam in his eye reflects a deep focus as a powerful punch connects, sending a spray of blood and sweat into the air. In the chaos of the fight, a mouthguard is sent flying, a testament to the brutal force of the impact as the crowd watches on. This is Takarazawa Kayasuke, the man who guided Riku, standing victorious but battered over his fallen opponent. His story, and his words, are about to become a crucial lesson. The scene flashes back to Takarazawa's crowning moment at age 20, becoming the OPBF champion. In the present, he and Riku watch the footage. Takarazawa cringes, saying he hates watching his younger self, finding it horribly embarrassing. Riku, however, admits he really likes the match. Takarazawa reminisces about winning 1,000,000 yen, but having little left after paying off debts. He tells Riku that compared to the world stage, the OPBF title wasn't much of anything. Riku questions why Takarazawa didn't pursue a world title. Takarazawa reveals his true desire was for the OPBF light division belt, more than money or even the world title, leaving Riku confused as to why he'd choose the lesser prize. Takarazawa poses a heavy question, suggesting that success as a pro depends on the ability to truly hurt people. He turns the question to Riku, asking if he possesses that ability, before mentioning there is one more thing. Leaving the thought hanging, Takarazawa gestures back to the TV, showing his past victory. The abrupt change of subject leaves Riku completely bewildered. The scene shifts to the quiet of the night. A full moon hangs over the city, casting long shadows down an empty street and into a dark, silent boxing gym. But the gym is not empty. Riku is inside, training alone and relentlessly, his focus absolute. The gym's coach walks in, surprised to find him still practicing so late at night. The coach jokes about Riku's intensity, asking if he plans to pulverize the old punching bag. Riku, breathless, apologizes. The coach then grabs some papers, his expression turning serious. Riku tries to speak, but the coach interrupts, guessing it's about Riku's hesitation to throw a punch. His tone changes as he asks a pointed question. "Did you go to Kayasuke's place?" The coach sternly tells Riku not to visit Takarazawa anymore. Then he drops the news that will change everything. Riku's professional debut match has been decided. The scene cuts back to Takarazawa's final, cutting words to Riku. "From now on, you're a boxer who lives and breathes in that world. Nothing you do will have anything to do with me." The separation is now complete. Blindsided and angry, Riku storms out, ignoring the coach's shouts that Takarazawa is a yakuza. The coach, left in his wake, erupts in frustration, yelling that Riku has always been bent on self-destruction. The coach's anger subsides, replaced by a weary resignation. He understands he's trying to push Riku away from the one person who believes in him, but the stubborn brat can't see it. His concern for Riku is palpable. Riku channels his turmoil back into his training. The feeling of being pushed away only fuels his rage, translating into harder, faster, and more desperate punches against the bag. As he punches, his mind flashes with images of his past and his complicated relationship with his mentor. With tears of frustration and determination in his eyes, he focuses his thoughts on Mr. Takarazawa. He remembers the loneliness he felt before meeting his mentor, realizing that the ring is the only place he can escape those feelings. He looks at the photo of his first opponent, Kitsuya Kikuchi, and reflects on his own dark motivations. His debut has been arranged, but Takarazawa's words of separation echo in his mind, defining the lonely path he must now walk as a professional boxer. Bakwa, Faziti Pai. The intense training continues under the coach's watchful eye. He yells instructions during sparring, pushing Riku to be faster, to read his opponent, and to close the distance to land his specialty, the hook. The coach warns Riku not to underestimate his opponent, Kikuchi. Pointing to a poster, he explains that although Kikuchi is a small fry, he's a former welterweight whose fists can kill. To make light of him is to make light of boxing itself. The next morning, as Riku gets ready for school after practice, the coach muses on the nature of a fighter's debut. He knows that most rookies struggle with the idea of fighting with their life on the line against a stranger they don't even hate. Focusing on the picture of Kikuchi, the coach advises Riku not to slack off just because he lacks hatred for the man. He then hands Riku a wad of cash, reminding him of one of the grim realities for newbies, having to deal with selling tickets. On his way to school, tickets in hand, Riku is greeted by his classmate, Nashiro. She immediately notices his swollen face, a common sight she's getting used to. When she asks if the papers in his hand are tickets for something, he quickly dismisses her question, attempting to hide that part of his life from her. His classmate, Naeshiro, continues the conversation, asking about his career plans and if he intends to make money with boxing. Seeing him walk away, she tells him to let her know when his fight is decided, as she wants to see him do his best as a pro. Naeshiro confronts him, arguing that since he studies in the morning and works a part-time job to attend a welfare school, he can't afford to waste money. Riku insists it's not a waste, but runs into some thugs before he can explain. He reflects on the reality of being a boxer. If you can't even sell one ticket, then the boxer fights without any income. All newbies have to bug their friends to sell tickets. But for Riku, none of that matters. He clenches his fist, thinking to himself, as long as I can fight, I'm fine. The scene shifts to the fight venue. A poster announces the debut fight, Kitsuya Kikuchi versus Riku Azumi. At the venue, Riku's coach and another man spot the rumored rookie, with the coach expressing his interest in the boy who is said to be the best boxer from the gym in a long time. The narrative introduces Riku's opponent, Kitsuya Kikuchi, in a different light. He's talking to his young son, Takaru, explaining that fighting a scary rookie is an adventure. The boy is worried, but Kikuchi reassures him with a gentle smile, promising that his daddy will win. Kikuchi promises his son that after the fight, they'll go out to eat wherever he wants. The boy, Takaru, is overjoyed. Riku and his coach watch this tender moment from a distance, Riku's expression unreadable. As Riku watches the father and son embrace, his cold gaze meets the boy's innocent, happy face. The scene then cuts to the weigh-in, where both fighters prepare to step on the scale. Riku steps forward for the weigh-in, his shirt off, revealing a torso covered in old, mottled scars. The sight is shocking to the onlookers, including the two men from earlier. As Riku weighs in, Kikuchi's son, Takaru, lets out a gasp of fear at the sight of the scars. The coach tells him to shut up. Afterwards, Kikuchi approaches the scarred Riku, extending a hand and wishing him the best, noting how young he is for a high schooler. Takaru, encouraged by his father's sportsmanship, timidly greets Riku. But Riku's internal monologue is chilling and immediate. As he looks down at the child, he thinks, "This person, could you just die, please?" The child, sensing the coldness, looks terrified. Riku's own expression is startled, as if surprised by his own dark thoughts. The surrounding adults try to smooth things over, but the disturbing moment hangs in the air. As Riku walks away, Naeshiro asks him what he thinks of his opponent. Riku's reply is cryptic and heavy with meaning. My opponent is not just one person. My opponent's family has also become my opponent. The title card marks the start of a new chapter, Chapter 10 Gong. Riku sits in the corner of the ring, bruised but focused. The question hangs in the air. Is there something dwelling in his fists? Naeshiro stands outside the shuttered Baba gym, wondering why Riku hasn't been to school for 2 days. A woman appears, informing her that Riku isn't there right now because he has a fight tonight. Naeshiro is shocked by the news. Meanwhile, Riku stands with his coach, ready for battle. The coach reflects that Riku's newfound assertiveness is just like Kyosuke's. The time has finally come. Riku watches his opponent, Kikuchi, embracing his child. He knows that soon, he'll be trading blows with this good father. He steels himself, thinking, tonight I'll find out if I can survive in this world. The fight is about to begin in a sparsely filled arena. Riku comments on the lonesome scene, but his coach reminds him that as a 4-rounder, he shouldn't expect a large crowd. In the corner of the ring, Kikuchi's daughter cheers him on. The announcer begins the introduction for the 9th 4-rounder lightweight match. The coach looks around, noting that Takuzawa Kyosuke isn't there. The announcer introduces Kitsuya Kikuchi from the Tezuka gym, and then Riku Azumi from the Baba boxing gym. 2 men in the crowd comment on Riku's visible injuries and his good looks. Kikuchi offers a final gesture of sportsmanship, wishing Riku good luck. Riku remains silent. In his corner, the coach reminds him that Kyosuke taught him about the mental side of boxing, not the technical aspects, and that's all he'll say. The timekeeper signals the start of round 1. The sound of the gong rings out, startling Kikuchi's young daughter in the audience, while Riku looks on with a blank, questioning expression. The moment the bell rings, Kikuchi explodes forward, launching an aggressive flurry of punches. Riku is immediately on the defensive, caught off guard by the instant onslaught. Kikuchi presses his attack, pinning Riku against the ropes right after the opening gong. An onlooker shouts in surprise at the immediate charge. Riku's eye widens, registering the fierce aggression. From the crowd, a manic-looking Takuzawa provides his own commentary. He scoffs at Kikuchi being called a hard puncher, dismissing him as a journeyman who got lucky with a few knockdowns. To him, this is just a 4-round match with good spirit, nothing more. Takuzawa correctly reads the desperation on Kikuchi's face. In the ring, Riku is forced to clinch under the barrage of punches, trying to weather the storm as Kikuchi's daughter shouts for her father to hang on. The intensity of the moment is overwhelming. As Riku weathers the storm of punches, his mind drifts. He sees his opponent as he was before the fight, a loving father. He sees them in the ring, trading blows. He sees his own eye, wide with a terrifying realization. Riku's internal monologue clarifies his thoughts. He flashes back to his own desolate childhood, alone and eating scraps. He realizes with chilling clarity, that kid has everything I once wanted most. Naeshiro arrives at the venue, only to be stopped at the door. She overhears the crowd buzzing about the intense fight, predicting it will be over in the first round. Inside, Riku still hasn't thrown a single punch, but the tide is about to turn. As his son screams for him, Kikuchi wonders what he's doing. At the same time, a bloodied Riku has a moment of existential crisis. He finally made it to his debut, but if he loses here, if he can't even live with boxing, what will become of his life? The question of my life ignites something primal within him. A silent scream tears through his mind as he unleashes a savage, desperate punch, pouring all his pain and history into a single, brutal blow. The punch connects with brutal force just as the round timer hits 0. Kikuchi's face registers pure shock and pain from the unexpected, savage counterattack. The referee has to physically stop Riku as the round ends. From the shadows, Takuzawa smirks, noting that Riku finally used it after being cornered. The chapter ends on a wheezing, transformed Riku, his fist now a conduit for something truly dangerous. The interval before the second round begins. In the stands, the audience murmurs in shock, wondering what's happening with the boxer in the blue corner. His performance was apparently brutal. In the ring, that boxer, Azumi Riku, stands alone, battered and bleeding. He looks more like a wounded animal than a fighter. He's completely in his own world, detached from everything around him. Riku reflects on the previous round. He realizes he missed a chance to finish the fight, but it felt as though his own fist refused to deal the final blow, moving on its own accord. A thought flashes through Riku's mind, questioning his own motives. Is he so desperate to run from his past that he'd go as far as to brutally defeat the father of the child watching from the crowd? A wide view of the arena shows Riku standing isolated in his corner, while on the other side, his opponent, Kitsuya Kikuchi, receives instructions from his corner. In the red corner, Kitsuya Kikuchi gets a pep talk and a fist bump, encouragement to keep going. Kitsuya's coach, who is also his father, passionately urges him to be confident, telling him to remember his combinations to secure the win. In return, Kitsuya looks towards him and simply says, "Daddy." Kitsuya looks over to see his son and another family member cheering him on with all their might, telling him that this time, he'll definitely win. Strengthened by the sight of his son, Kitsuya finds new resolve. He understands that when a person is cornered, they must do whatever it takes to win, because winning is the only way to move forward. Kitsuya is determined to be a hero in his son's eyes. He promises his son, Takaru, a meal after the fight. As his father sends him back into the ring, Kitsuya's resolve is clear. He cannot let this end in defeat. Round 2 begins. Kitsuya and Riku face off in the center of the ring. The scene briefly flashes to a glove hitting the canvas, foreshadowing the brutal conclusion of this round. Riku lands a clean, powerful straight right, snapping Kitsuya's head back with a spray of sweat and blood. Even Riku seems surprised by the impact. Kitsuya is visibly stunned by the blow, and Riku's eyes widen as he presses his brutal attack. From the corner, Kitsuya's father screams in horror. But Riku doesn't stop, landing another devastating punch. For him, this has become a matter of kill or be killed. Riku recalls the feeling of his fist refusing to move earlier, but now he's in a frenzy. Kitsuya is battered against the ropes, his mouth guard flying out as Riku unleashes a relentless flurry of punches. Kitsuya's face is a mess of blood and swelling, barely able to stand. Seizing the moment, Riku delivers a final, crushing uppercut that sends his opponent flying. Kitsuya is knocked out cold. In the audience, his young son watches in horror, his face splattered with his own father's blood. Riku seems to grab Kitsuya's son, who may have rushed towards his fallen father. In that moment, Riku's eyes reflect the image of the crying child, and he is confronted with the reality of what it means to be defeated. The fight is officially over. Both fighters are down on the canvas as the audience looks on in stunned silence. As medics rush in with a stretcher, Riku's coach, Baba Kichimura, watches from the side with a smirk. He remarks that someone aiming for the OPBF title shouldn't be having trouble with a simple 4-rounder. Later, in the hallway of the stadium, Riku sits alone on a bench, tending to his wounds. In the distance, he can hear Kitsuya's son crying out for his daddy. Suddenly, Kitsuya's son appears, pushing his father in a wheelchair or walker. He confronts Riku, screaming at him to answer for what he's done. The sight of the crying boy and his defeated father triggers a core belief in Riku. He reminds himself of his own harsh rule for survival. The weak become losers, and losers can't achieve anything. Clutching his chest, Riku reaffirms his goal. He has to aim for the OPBF belt, even if he has to do it alone. For him, boxing is the only way to live. If he were forced to quit boxing, it would be the same as quitting on life itself. While Riku struggles with his inner demons, his handler, Mr. Takawa, waits for him out in the cold. The shrewd manager seems to have plans for his young, promising, and deeply troubled fighter. His resolve hardens. If he were to quit now, he would become a loser, an outcome his very soul refuses to accept. The scene shifts to the orphanage, where steady rain falls. A young woman, Naeshiro, yawns as she walks along the corridor. Nearby, Riku is slumped against a wall, having returned from his fight. Naoshiro spots Riku and immediately confronts him, her voice filled with anger and concern. She demands to know why he didn't tell her about the fight, revealing that she heard about the tickets. Her anger quickly fades to shock as she gets a closer look at him. She sees his bruised and bandaged face, realizing the severity of the fight he just endured. Naoshiro looks at Riku with wide, worried eyes. Riku, exhausted and in pain, keeps his own eyes shut, his face a mask of bandages and silent suffering. Finding him asleep sitting up, Naoshiro kneels beside him, urging him to wake up so he doesn't catch a cold. She gently reaches out to rouse him. As her hand gets closer, Riku's eye snaps open. Her gentle touch is about to trigger a violent, traumatic memory. Riku jolts awake with a gasp, his body recoiling as if struck. Naoshiro is startled, pulling her hand back from his sudden and panicked reaction. The touch sends Riku into a harrowing flashback. He momentarily mistakes Naoshiro for a Ms. Ihara, as the horrific image of a dead or dying woman, covered in blood, flashes in his mind. He quickly tries to dismiss it, but the trauma is clearly visible on his face. Naoshiro, still shaken, changes the subject and asks if he won. Riku, haunted by the memory of his opponent lying on the canvas, simply replies, "Yep." The question triggers another memory, this time of himself as a small child, covered in blood and crying alongside another terrified child, huddled together in the aftermath of a tragedy. Riku sits in despair, realizing a horrifying truth. By striking down Katsuya for his own sake, he has forced his opponent's child to experience the same kind of trauma that has haunted his own life. Overwhelmed by his thoughts, Riku gets up and walks away, leaving a confused and worried Naoshiro calling his name behind him. Meanwhile, Mr. Takarazawa watches a news report from his car. The broadcast is highlighting an upcoming boxing event for male teens, focusing on a top fighter from Asia. The report introduces the prodigy, Kid Hyodo, the 18-year-old son of a former world champion. He's a hot-blooded fighter with high expectations to turn pro and break records. As Takarazawa watches, someone knocks on his car window. He looks over, surprised to see his visitor standing out in the rain. It's Riku's coach, Baba Kichimura, looking grim as he stands under an umbrella in the downpour. The two meet under a sheltered park bench. Takarazawa cynically asks why Baba is here, noting that he thought they couldn't meet publicly because it would cause problems for the coach. Baba asks if Takarazawa was at the fight. Takarazawa denies it, but Baba sees right through him, saying he knows how his mind works. Baba gives Takarazawa a stern warning: never approach Riku directly. He reveals Takarazawa's past as a retired Yakuza member, cautioning that even if it's a secret, there are still lines that can't be crossed. Baba then confesses his personal investment. He was the one who got Riku into boxing in the first place and felt a personal obligation to see his debut fight. A flashback shows a very young Riku already practicing his stance. Takarazawa smirks, his suspicions confirmed. He knew Riku would forge his own path into the ring. The thought of how this brutal, traumatized kid will survive in the world of boxing genuinely excites him. Done with the pleasantries, Baba gets to the point. He dismisses talk of the world or the OPBF for now and gives Takarazawa a chilling ultimatum. Make Riku the Rookie King first, then take him to the top of the world, or Baba will personally kill him. Back at the orphanage, Naoshiro watches a recording of Riku's brutal fight on TV, her face a mask of shock and concern as she witnesses the cold violence he is capable of. The footage of Riku's shocking professional debut begins to circulate. In boxing gyms, other fighters gather around screens to watch the raw violence of the previous day's rookie match, the word of his brutal victory spreading through the boxing world. In a room filled with trophies, the boxing prodigy, Kid Hyodo, watches the footage of Riku's fight. His coach notes that their gear was lent for a rookie four-rounder, but Hyodo is captivated, questioning if Riku is really just a low-level fighter. Hyodo's analysis is sharp. He identifies Riku's move as a Russian punch, marveling at its pinpoint accuracy and the way he drives his knuckles into his opponent. He continues, noting he's never seen anything like it. Looking at Riku's ghastly expression, Hyodo concludes that Riku isn't fighting for glory, but out of a raw, desperate instinct for survival. On screen, Riku looks less like a boxer and more like a predator as he brutally takes down his opponent. Hyodo's assessment is chilling and simple. A guy who punches to kill. Later, as he lies in bed, Hyodo can't stop thinking about this mysterious four-rounder. He's certain that this left will appear again in the Rookie King tournament, and he seems to be looking forward to it. A predatory smile spreads across Hyodo's face. He finds the power behind Riku's punch alluring, calling it a tasty-looking fist. He admits to himself that he wants to experience being hit by a guy like him. The scene shifts to Coach Baba, relaxing as so planned. A woman with him suggests he should go check on Riku, but Baba nonchalantly dismisses her, saying the kid is fine on his own now. However, Baba cuts his relaxation short, stating he has something else to do today as he leaves the establishment. Meanwhile, Riku is pushing himself to the limit, running through the city streets late at night, his breath coming in ragged pants. He doesn't stop, continuing his training even as he runs, practicing his form and keeping his fists clenched and ready. His run is interrupted by a rustling sound from a pile of trash. He stops to see a pair of crows scavenging in the darkness. As Riku watches the crows tear apart the scraps, a voice begins to speak, seemingly from the shadows. It's Takarazawa, about to impart a dark lesson. Takarazawa tells Riku to be like the crows and feast. He must systematically devour his opponents to secure victory and climb to the top. Riku's reflection in the crows shows the lesson sinking in. As the crows caw aggressively, fighting over every last scrap, Takarazawa's philosophy becomes clear: leave nothing to waste. It's a lesson in absolute, predatory ruthlessness. Back at the orphanage, Nashiro sits at her desk, the evening news playing on her TV. The sports segment features the rising star, Kid Hyodo, showcasing his latest victory at the Nationals, his 6th gold medal. As she watches the news report on Hyodo's success and his plans to turn pro like his famous father, the reality of the boxing world hits Naoshiro, and her thoughts inevitably turn to Riku. Naoshiro puts on her headphones, her expression full of worry. She makes a quiet wish that Riku will lose a match soon, hoping a defeat will be enough to make him quit boxing for good. Elsewhere, Riku checks his old phone, only to find an empty inbox. He's received no word from anyone after his fight. At the gym, Riku looks dejected. He notes that Takarazawa hasn't answered his message, leaving him feeling isolated and uncertain. Just then, Coach Baba appears, calling out to Riku and startling him from his thoughts. Baba tells the exhausted Riku to take a break, an order that Riku seems to have trouble comprehending at first. But it's not a long break. Baba's next words are in order. Riku is to prepare himself for a spar. In another part of the city, Takarazawa curses to himself, clearly agitated about something. He looks at the simple text message from Riku. I won. Annoyed by what he perceives as boasting, he mutters about Riku, while also acknowledging that he himself has been acting strange lately, watched by his subordinates. Back at the gym, the doorframe is struck with a loud whack. Riku and the others turn to see who has just arrived. It's Kid Hyodo. He stands at the edge of the ring, his intense gaze fixed on Riku, who looks up from the canvas, immediately sensing the challenge. Hyodo scans Riku with a curious and confident smirk, sizing up the fighter he had only seen on screen until now. Hyodo casually greets Riku, who asks who this newcomer is. As Coach Baba looks on, Hyodo's own coach congratulates Riku on his debut victory. Declaring himself a fan, Hyodo shakes Riku's hand while asking for a picture. Before Riku can even process the request, Hyodo pulls him in for a selfie. As the awkward photo op takes place, Takarazawa and his men arrive. One of them formally greets Coach Baba, acknowledging the tense meeting of the two camps. Hyodo's coach explains that they couldn't find a suitable sparring partner anywhere, making this a great help. Baba, in turn, reminds Riku that this spar is his reward for his last fight, and he expects him to perform well. With an air of quiet understanding, Hyodo and Riku agree to the spar. The meeting of these two immense talents marks the beginning of a new, intense rivalry. Kid Hyodo wraps his hands, questioning the hype around a mere 4-round boxer. As a professional preparing for his Class A license test, he believed there will be plenty of other rivals to worry about in the future. The scene opens to a sparring match already in progress. In the ring, the protagonist, Riku, faces off against the boxing world's acclaimed genius, Hyodo. Hyodo, observing his opponent, notes internally that Riku's left hand is far more interesting than some vague adversary. Hyodo lets out a curious, "Oh," clearly intrigued by something he has noticed in his sparring partner. Riku, on the other hand, observes Hyodo with confusion. He thinks that Hyodo looks like a completely different person, a mere brat, compared to how he was during his last fight, seemingly devoid of any fighting spirit. Suddenly, an older man with distinct white hair walks past the ring. Riku, distracted from the spar, asks aloud who the man is. Hyodo's coach seems surprised that his boxer doesn't recognize the famous figure. The man himself, however, overhears and states that it doesn't matter. The spar is about to begin. The timer is set for 3 minutes. Hyodo's coach, with a tired expression, tells him to shut up and fight, to which Hyodo quietly agrees. The two fighters, Riku and Hyodo, stand in the center of the ring, ready to begin their match. Coaches watch from the corners. Hyodo, with his guard up, wishes Riku good luck as the match starts. A tense stare-down between the two opponents. Both fighters have a look of intense concentration in their eyes as they face each other. The fight begins, and Riku immediately goes on the offensive, landing a clean punch on Hyodo. Hyodo takes the full force of the blow, his head snapping back from the impact. As Riku continues his assault, the spectators from Hyodo's gym shout his name in shock and disbelief at how easily he is being hit. Riku looks on, slightly surprised. He is landing his punches, but something feels off about his opponent's reaction. Ignoring the strange feeling, Riku presses his advantage, throwing a flurry of punches while telling himself he can win this. Hyodo grits his teeth and endures the onslaught. Hyodo's coach watches in horror. He exclaims that this boxer is completely different from what he saw on video, expressing regret for putting Hyodo in this match. Meanwhile, a dark, ominous aura begins to emanate from Hyodo. Riku lands another powerful blow, snapping Hyodo's head back as blood starts to fly. Despite a bleeding nose and taking heavy damage, a faint, unnerving smile appears on Hyodo's face as he stumbles backward. Riku freezes, a disturbing realization beginning to dawn on him. He thinks to himself, rather than hitting him, he is, as his eyes lock onto Hyodo's bloody, smiling mouth. The sight of Hyodo's blood-soaked, smiling face fills Riku with a sense of dread and confusion. The horrifying truth crashes down on Riku. Hyodo is intentionally letting me hit him. While Riku is frozen in shock, Hyodo's eyes are calm and calculating. Paralyzed by this terrifying strategy, Riku can only watch in shock as a glove comes rushing towards his face. Having willingly absorbed all of Riku's attacks, Hyodo delivers a devastating counterpunch that lands squarely on Riku's jaw. The spar continues, and Hyodo lands a clean, powerful punch on Riku's headgear. Riku is taken by complete surprise, his eyes wide with shock as he wonders what just happened. A look at the timer shows that only 56 seconds have passed. From the corner, a voice chuckles, saying, "Yeah, that worked." The distance shot shows the two boxers in the ring, emphasizing Hyodo's control. Riku grows frustrated, realizing that none of his own punches are reaching Hyodo. From outside the ring, his coach watches with a knowing smirk, confirming the skill gap. Hyodo's coach casually mentions to Hyodo that if his opponent is participating in the Rookie King tournament, perhaps he should consider it as well, looking down on him from above. Despite having only sparred for a brief time, Hyodo decides to leave the ring. Wiping blood from his nose with a slight smile, he seems completely unfazed. Riku and the others yell after him in disbelief, asking him to at least fight for 2 rounds. With his headgear now off, Riku stares forward, his expression a mixture of frustration and intense determination after the abrupt end of the spar. Takarazawa, Riku's coach, observes him and asks if he still wants to fight more. He can see the fire in Riku's eyes, but Hyodo has already left. With a wry smile, Takarazawa watches as Riku gets dressed. The scene transitions away from the gym. An image of an old residential building at night is followed by a close-up of a dusty, dated VHS player, signaling a shift in time or location. In a dimly lit hallway, a young woman, Yuki, appears. She sips from a juice box and calls out "Sir" to someone off-panel. The scene shifts again, revealing Hyodo's coach, Azumi. He's surprised that Takarazawa would ask him for a favor. The favor is revealed to allow Riku to watch a VHS tape. In the background, Riku sits in front of an old television, ready to play the tape labeled East Japan Rookie King. The video begins to play. On the screen, a young, fierce-looking boxer with spiky hair stands in the ring under a banner that reads, East Japan Rookie King Tournament. As Riku watches, he has a realization. He notes that the boxer on the screen, Takarazawa, was around the same age as him back when he competed in the Rookie King Tournament. The VHS tape shows the ferocious battle of the young Takarazawa. Riku is completely mesmerized, his eyes glued to the screen as he watches the relentless exchange of blows. The tape continues, showing Takarazawa as the victor, proudly holding his trophy. The narration describes him as an overwhelming fighter. Riku continues to watch intently. He understands that his coach was a fighter who towered above the rest, someone completely different from the boxers of the current generation. As he watches his coach's old fight, the memory of Hyodo's punch from the earlier spar flashes through Riku's mind, a sharp and impactful recollection. In a moment of epiphany, Riku connects the 2 fighters. He realizes that Hyodo possesses the same rare, overwhelming talent that his coach, Takarazawa, had in his prime. In the background, Yuki watches him with a look of concern. Lost in his thoughts, Riku clenches his fist, the tattoo on his hand a stark reminder of his past, as he processes this new revelation. Just then, Yuki's voice cuts through his concentration, calling his name and pulling him back to the present. The scene shifts to the following day, where an official fight poster confirms what fate had already set in motion. The pro debut, a 4-round bout, is announced. Kid Hyodo versus Itsuki Kagetsu. Their destined confrontation is no longer just a possibility. It is now a scheduled event, setting the stage for a highly anticipated clash. The scene cuts to a boxing ring, not during a fight, but afterwards. Kid Hyodo stands victorious as a crowd of reporters and photographers swarm the ringside, their cameras flashing, eager to capture the moment. With the stage lights shining behind him, Hyodo looks out with a bored, almost disdainful expression, letting out a dismissive scoff. A high-angle view shows the aftermath of the fight. Hyodo stands over his defeated opponent, who is now kneeling on the canvas in exhaustion and pain. Hyodo simply says, "Thank you," a formal but cold closing to the match. Now, facing the press, Hyodo is bombarded with questions. Reporters press him, asking why a boxer of his caliber is debuting in the lower C class when there are shorter paths to the top. Hyodo seems to ponder the word path. With an air of supreme confidence, Hyodo addresses the media. He acknowledges that his path is connected to glory and a sense of mission, but cryptically adds that he's intentionally taking a little detour. Hyodo then drops a bombshell on the stunned reporters. He declares that he wants to fight a kid called Riku Azumi at the Rookie King Tournament. The crowd murmurs in confusion as he walks away, having just called out a complete unknown. As he walks down the corridor, leaving the press behind, Hyodo scoffs, thinking to himself that this is all that 4-round fights amount to, implying they're beneath his true goal. The perspective shifts back to Riku. He reflects on the nature of his own fighting style, contrasting it with others. He knows his punches are straightforward and destructive, but it's more than that. In the ring, Riku's expression is grim. His internal monologue reveals the dark truth behind his fighting style. It has a different feeling, as if he has killed before. A dynamic shot shows Riku in a sparring session, his body and the air around him crackling with the violent energy of his movements, illustrating the intensity of his destructive punches. Riku's coach, Takarazawa, confronts him, holding a newspaper article about Hyodo's debut and his ambition for the Rookie King title. The coach is blunt. Hyodo, a decorated amateur, has the skills to destroy Riku and is now targeting him. He asks Riku what he plans to do about it. Riku's mind flashes back to a traumatic memory. He recalls a moment of utter defeat, his voiceover stating, "My path was cut short." The image shows a body, presumably his younger self, lying broken on the floor. A tight close-up on Riku's eye reveals his unwavering gaze. He finishes his thought about his past, stating plainly, "When I was destroyed." That's all there is to it. He acknowledges his dark past as the simple foundation of who he is now. This marks the end of Chapter 15. Chapter 16, titled Classmate, begins. The scene shifts to a school in the morning. The idyllic setting is contrasted by a single desk covered in trash, graffiti, and a destroyed shoe, a clear sign of severe bullying. A female student, Naoshiro, looks upon the trash desk. Her expression is a mixture of sadness, pity, and concern for the student who sits there. Without hesitation, Naoshiro approaches the desk and begins to clean up the mess, carefully sweeping the garbage into a dustpan. As Naoshiro is about to empty the dustpan into the trash can, she is startled by the sound of a footstep directly behind her. She lets out a small, surprised gasp. She turns to see a male classmate standing there. He's in a school uniform, but carries a small bag, possibly for a club activity. Naoshiro looks at him, surprised by his presence. The male student, Misahaya, takes the bag of trash from Riku's desk. Naoshiro watches him, recognizing who he is. Misahaya speaks to Naoshiro, asking if she had to see something so disgusting again this morning. He casually remarks on the bullies, saying he's not sure why they do it, guessing they're just kids killing time. Naoshiro thanks Misahaya and notes that their small boxing club has changed since he joined. She suggests he could ask the other members, who she calls delinquents, for help with the bullying situation. Standing outside the school, Naoshiro mentions that she saw on TV that Misahaya placed fourth at the Nationals last month. Misahaya explains that after being successful in middle school, he slacked off in his first year of high school and couldn't win anymore, but he has been sparring with Riku. Naoshiro, with a thoughtful expression, asks Misahaya if he returned to boxing because he found it fun again. Her reflection is captured in his eye as he considers the question. Looking directly at Misahaya, Naoshiro straightforwardly asks for his phone number. He seems taken aback by the sudden request. The scene abruptly cuts to a completely different setting. A shady-looking man with a sinister grin holds a phone, saying, "Okay, let's do this." The location appears to be a red light district, hinting at a darker, unrelated plotline. Back at the gym, Riku's coach, Takawa, is on the phone, his face a mask of shock as he exclaims, "Really?" Below, the panel shows Riku continuing his relentless training, oblivious to the phone call that will shape his future. As Riku pounds the heavy bag, an unknown observer comments on the situation. Ever since the prodigy Hyodo called him out, the entire boxing world has had its eyes on Riku Azumi. The speaker notes they also saw the rookie's glove, praising the quality of a boxer from the Baba Gym. The person on the phone with Takarazawa is revealed to be a matchmaker. Takarazawa, looking weary, explains that Hyodo's public challenge has put him in a very difficult position regarding Riku's debut. Takarazawa walks towards the ring, asking if there are any strings attached to the proposed match. The matchmaker on the other end quickly agrees, saying, "Fine, fine. Anything's fine," clearly eager to make the fight happen. With the terms agreed upon, Takarazawa smirks, confirming he understands and will be at the gym tomorrow. The deal is done. In the background, Riku continues to train, his intense focus unbroken. As he trains, Riku's core motivation echoes in his mind once again, a mantra born from trauma. My path was cut short when I was destroyed. That's all there is to it. Takarazawa watches his student with a mix of satisfaction and concern. He notes that for someone who once seemed so uninterested, Riku possesses a latent fighting spirit greater than anyone's, one that won't let him quit, especially after tasting a fight with the real deal. He calls out to the boy. The scene shifts to a cafe where Naeshiro and Misahaya are sitting together. Riku is also there, sitting alone in a separate booth. Misahaya calls over to him, telling him to go do his homework, establishing a casual senior-student dynamic. Naeshiro confides in Misahaya, saying she thinks there's something strange about people who choose to box. Sensing her curiosity, Misahaya smiles and asks if she's interested in the sport. Naeshiro wonders why boxers push themselves so fervently to the point where one might think they're trying to die. Misahaya laughs, dismissing the notion and explaining that he, for one, tries to proceed as efficiently as possible without needlessly harming his health. Misahaya continues his explanation, stating that the boxers who are willing to sacrifice everything over a short period are a rare breed, only a handful at most. As Misahaya speaks, the panel flashes to an image of Riku, sweat-drenched and in anguish during his training. Misahaya's voiceover poses a question about this type of fighter. Are they simply lonely? The image flashes again, this time to Riku lying beaten on the ground, a familiar image of his past trauma, yet he wears a defiant smile. Misahaya's voiceover completes the question. Or a genius? Back at the cafe, Misahaya calmly sips his coffee, concluding his philosophy. He believes boxing isn't a barbarous sport, but a dangerous one that requires thought, and it's not worth destroying your health over. Naeshiro, absorbing his words, looks at him with wide, curious eyes. She directly asks the question that's been on her mind. Is Azumi any different? Misahaya reveals that he knows Riku turned pro, telling Naeshiro she doesn't have to hide it from him. As a fellow boxer, he's aware that Riku has become the talk of the boxing world, something he only found out himself last week. Naeshiro shares her worries, saying that Riku hasn't seemed energetic lately and she was concerned something was wrong, but he refuses to talk about it. Misahaya's expression shows a flicker of interest at this information. Changing the subject, Misahaya mentions that since he just turned pro himself, it seems he won't have to wait long for his own debut fight. He then extends an invitation to Naeshiro. Why don't you come see my fight? To further entice her, and perhaps to provoke a reaction, Misahaya adds with a smirk, it might be a better fight than Azumi's. Naeshiro is left speechless, her eyes wide with surprise. The scene returns to the gym. Riku is exhausted from training while his coach, Takarazawa, sits calmly, reviewing some papers. He calls out, "Listen, kid," ready to give Riku his next instructions. Takarazawa assigns Riku his homework. He tells him to study his next opponent, a fighter who uses an orthodox stance and only short punches. The paper reveals the opponent's identity, Tsubasa Misahaya, age 17, his classmate. The next day at school, Misahaya walks Naeshiro to her classroom, saying a casual goodbye before heading to his own class. As Misahaya walks away, a classmate can be heard laughing at him. From his seat by the window, Riku quietly watches his classmate and now opponent leave. The classroom is filled with students, but the focus is on Riku, sitting alone at his clean desk. In front of him sits Misahaya. A silent tension hangs between them, the unspoken rivalry now present in their shared space. A split panel shows close-ups of both Riku and Misahaya. They are not looking at each other, but they are intensely aware of each other's presence, their destinies as classmates and fighters now intertwined. Back in the classroom, the teacher instructs the students to take their seats and turn off their phones as he begins handing out prints. Riku complies. The ordinary school day, a stark contrast to the brewing storm in his life. As Misahaya passes by his desk, Riku watches him, his gaze sharp and focused. The casual air of the classroom is gone, replaced by the silent assessment of a fighter studying his opponent. A dramatic close-up shows Misahaya perfectly reflected in Riku's eye. His classmate has now become a target, a clear and present obstacle on his path. Riku reflects on this shift. For the first time, he feels like he is truly seeing a classmate, not as a person in his school life, but as a part of his world of fighting. Misahaya sits at his desk and clicks his pen. "Start," he says, ostensibly for the test they are about to take, but the word hangs in the air with the double meaning of their impending confrontation. That night, Naoshiro is at home, staring at her phone. She rereads the message from Misahaya, his invitation to his debut fight, her face showing a mix of anxiety and indecision. Having made a decision, Naoshiro goes to Riku's apartment building. She finds Yuki and asks for him, then sees Riku himself walking down the hall and calls out his name. Riku's mind is on the invitation. He thinks to himself, he was invited to a boxing match on the 23rd of December. His expression is serious as he processes the implications. Naoshiro nervously explains the situation. She tells Riku that their classmate, Misahaya, has turned pro and that his debut fight is on that day. She adds that Misahaya knows about him, connecting the dots of their intertwined fate. With a look of earnest pleading, Naoshiro gets to the point of her visit, asking Riku directly if he will go to see Misahaya's fight. Sensing her internal conflict and fear of the sport's violence, Riku shows a surprising moment of empathy. He tells her she doesn't have to force herself if she doesn't want to go. Naoshiro is left speechless as Riku walks away. She stands alone in the hallway, silently contemplating his unexpected kindness and her own conflicted feelings. Meanwhile, at Misahaya's gym, his fellow boxers are gossiping. They're in disbelief that Riku's gym agreed to the match under the proposed terms, calling them stupid. They see it as a golden opportunity for Misahaya to make a name for himself in his debut. The gym members hype up Misahaya, reminding him of his old grudge against Hyodo from middle school and urging him to grab the Rookie King title to get his revenge. Misahaya, drenched in sweat from training, lays out his entire motivation. He declares that he turned pro specifically to defeat Hyodo. However, he sees Riku as a necessary first step, a pawn to be beaten to make his victory over Hyodo even sweeter. He vows not to hold back. Later, in the locker room, Misahaya reads a text from Naoshiro. She politely declines his invitation, saying she has other plans and can't root for him, but wishes him good luck. Her polite rejection stings. Misahaya looks down, a shadow crossing his face. He internally fumes about how Riku, despite being trapped in a seemingly hopeless situation, is commanding the attention of both his rival Hyodo and the girl he's interested in, Naoshiro. The scene cuts to Riku's brutal reality. He's being battered in a sparring session, blood flying from his mouth. His coach's voice drills into him, reminding him of his physical disadvantages and questioning if he's doomed to a hopeless life forever. Riku spars with his coach, who reflects on his own past. Takarazawa knows that he didn't always enter the ring in the best condition either. This is his way of teaching Riku to overcome adversity, just as he once had to. Just then, Naoshiro appears at the entrance to the gym. She lets out a startled gasp, witnessing for the first time the raw, shocking violence of Riku's world as he lands a bloody punch. Instead of running away, the sight solidifies a new resolve in Naoshiro. She runs through the city streets at night, her inner voice declaring that she wants to understand boxing, and more importantly, she wants to root for Riku. As she runs, she's tormented by her confusion. She doesn't understand how someone could choose a path that involves so much self-inflicted pain. She questions why Riku chose to walk such a path. Naoshiro's run leads her down a dark, empty alley where she stops in her tracks. She comes face to face with a horrifying scene. A blood-splattered man, Takarazawa, standing over a beaten figure. To her, this is the reality of the blood-stained path she was just thinking about. Naoshiro is frozen in absolute terror, her mouth agape in a silent scream as she tries to process the horrific scene she has stumbled upon. The bloodied Takarazawa turns a sharp gaze on her. Acknowledging her presence and her connection to his student, he speaks, delivering the chapter's final, chilling line. So they meet. You are Riku's. In a dark back alley, Naeshiro has a chance encounter with a man who has just taken down two others. Recognizing his connection to a certain someone, she says, "I'm sure you're Riku's." The man's eyes are intense, a stark contrast to Naeshiro's terrified expression. A flashback reveals why she's so scared. She was just attacked by a man with a knife. The skirmish continues as the man, Takarazawa, deflects another ruffian's knife attack, protecting Naeshiro, who watches from the side. Takarazawa brutally retaliates, punching the ruffian square in the face. He then gets on top of him and continues the assault, as Naeshiro watches in absolute horror. Holding the defeated man by the hair, Takarazawa turns his attention to Naeshiro. He notes that as Riku's housemate, she'd be a target for people looking for trouble, a thought that leaves her frozen in fear. The scene transitions, showing a glimpse of the city's nightlife and a love hotel, hinting at the gritty world these characters inhabit. Later, in an office, another woman comforts a crying Naeshiro. Takarazawa tries to make light of the situation, complaining about his hips, but Naeshiro is still shaken. Takarazawa decides it's too dangerous for her and says he'll send her off, clearly annoyed by the trouble she's brought. Naeshiro confronts him directly, saying, "You're the one who introduced Riku to boxing, right?" She blames him, claiming that because of him, Riku is getting injured more and more. A flashback shows a battered Riku in the ring, asking, "Make him stop, please. Where do any of you see happiness in this?" Back in the present, Takarazawa holds up his fingers, showing the numbers 40,000 and 1 million. He explains that this is the money boxers can earn in a single night, regardless of their past. Dreamy, right? He asks, to Naeshiro's disbelief. Naeshiro snaps back, yelling, "It's worthless if you die. Is that 1 million the happiness?" Takarazawa coolly explains that Riku is so fixated on winning that he can't see any other form of happiness. He says Riku can't live without being obsessed with it. He looks at her and says bluntly, "Give it up." Naeshiro is left in tears, her hope dwindling. Naeshiro makes one last plea, telling Takarazawa to stop chasing Riku because he's different from normal boxers. The scene shifts to a group home where a bruised and battered Riku is eating silently among other children. A close-up reveals Riku's face, his jaw throbbing with either physical pain or intense, unspoken emotions. Naeshiro, now also sporting a bandage, joins them. Riku asks what happened to her face, but she doesn't want to talk about it. While they eat, the morning sports news comes on, reporting on the pro debut of Kid Hyodo, the son of a famous former world champion. The report turns to the upcoming Rookie King tournament, and the name Misahaya catches Naeshiro's attention. Naeshiro lowers her head, pondering Takarazawa's words that she can't understand Riku if she can't even understand normal boxers. Gathering her courage, Naeshiro tells Riku that she met the Yakuza in black clothes last night. She looks him in the eye, her voice filled with concern, and asks, "What do you see in someone like him?" Instead of shock or fear, Riku's face breaks into a faint, almost nostalgic smile. Completely ignoring the danger, he simply asks, "Was he doing well?" Naeshiro is left stunned, with a look of pure shock on her face, unable to process Riku's casual and almost cheerful response to her concern about the dangerous Yakuza. As Riku continues to eat, Naeshiro is lost in thought, remembering how he smiled. She also recalls Takarazawa's words telling her to stop chasing after Riku, realizing that Riku was truly fighting, not just playing around. Riku, however, is already thinking about his next steps. He muses that Takarazawa was excellent at infighting, and he believes that if he can win his next match using that style, he'll be one step closer to him. His eyes fixate on a fight poster for the Karakuen Hall on December 23rd, showing his upcoming match, Riku Azumi versus Tsubasa Misahaya. Meanwhile, a news report on TV highlights the increasing danger in the area, with reports of gunshots and fights breaking out between delinquents over the last few weeks. Against this backdrop of rising crime, Riku begins to stretch, preparing to head out. Noticing this, a worried Naeshiro asks him, "Riku, are you going to the gym?" Riku looks back, explaining that his injuries have healed, but the gym is closed right now. A calendar shows the date is December 21st. He tells her he's just going to do some road work. Naeshiro stands up abruptly, insisting he mustn't go because the area is too dangerous. She then asks him directly, "Your wound, which part of the pleasure quarter did you get it at?" Her mind flashes back to the image of the man in black, Takarazawa, reinforcing her fear and concern for Riku's safety. Despite her pleas, Riku starts to leave. Naeshiro tries one last time to stop him, but he dismisses her concerns, simply saying, "I see," and heading out into the night. Naeshiro watches him walk away, alone on the dark street. She can't believe Riku smiled like that, and the reality of his detachment sinks in. Naeshiro's thoughts turn to Takarazawa's warning. Frustrated, she wonders what's wrong with that Yakuza. She resolves to find out when Riku's next fight is from the chairman. Meanwhile, Riku runs through a filthy, dark corridor, his determination evident as he practices his punches, a lone figure training in the shadows. The grim environment of his training is highlighted as he runs past a rat and splashes through a murky puddle, his movements swift and focused. As he shadowboxes, Riku thinks about his fight, which is only 2 days away. He knows he can't perfect his right straight in time, recalling how he was struck during sparring. He continues to analyze his strategy, thinking that relying on infighting could help him cope. However, he remembers that during sparring, he tried to react before being hit, but couldn't pull it off. As he runs, he wonders how Takarazawa would handle this. He questions his own thoughts, asking himself if the idea of reacting before being struck is truly so reckless. His mind flashes to an intense training method, a single boxer surrounded by multiple sparring partners, all attacking at once, forcing the boxer to defend from all sides. The intensity of the training is clear as the boxer is hit just as the timer rings at the 1-minute mark. The scene shifts to a different gym, where a coach tells a confident-looking Tsubasa Misahaya that he's trained enough for the day and can take a break. Misahaya scoffs at the mention of the prodigy Hyodo, thinking to himself that winning against him will justify all the time he has devoted to boxing. When his coach asks if he sold his tickets, Misahaya gives a smug smile, replying that he did, since he has a lot of friends. Finally, it's the day of the fight. Riku sits alone in the locker room, lacing up his shoes, his face a mask of worn, quiet focus. In the gym, 2 coaches discuss Riku's past. One notes that he had Riku start fighting as a kid, and unlike others who treat it as a game, the brat never quit. His colleague questions the wisdom of this, asking why he agreed to such impossible conditions for the upcoming fight, especially when Riku was treated as little more than a punching bag during sparring. The older coach clarifies his brutal training method with a smirk. "That's right," he says, "I had you beat the kid up one-sidedly and unreasonably." He explains it's all part of his plan to give Riku something to remember. In the locker room, Riku sits alone, wondering what his coach truly has in mind. Suddenly, a horrifying figure from his past appears in the doorway. It's his abusive father, Azumi. Riku looks up, his concentration shattered as he mutters, "Dad." Riku's mind races with anger and trauma. "Why are you here? Why are you showing up now?" he thinks, tormented by the reappearance of the man he thought he'd finally forgotten. The terrifying visage of his father looms in his mind, causing him to tremble as the past comes rushing back. But with sheer force of will, Riku grits his teeth and focuses. He stands, his body coiled with tension, and tells his father, "Don't butt in. I got a fight right now." The scene shifts to the fight arena. Naeshiro has arrived, watching a match for the first time. In the stands, Misaheya's classmates from Class 2 cheer him on with a large banner. From the corner of the ring, Riku's coach watches the scene with a calculating and serious expression. His associate asks who he is looking for. The coach scans the crowd and says he is looking for Naeshiro, but he can't see her, noting that she didn't come despite buying a ticket. His associate is confused by the coach's interest in whether or not the young girl showed up. The announcer introduces the fighters, Riku Azumi and Tsubasa Misahaya. The crowd is shocked, with some saying they'd heard of Misahaya but didn't know he was a boxer. Riku's internal thought reveals a darker history, labeling his opponent as a murderer. In the ring, Misahaya looks at Riku and says, "I hope you remember our condition, Azumi." He refers to himself as Riku's senior as a pro boxer. Riku just stares back, his face grim. Riku's coach tells him that the prodigy Hyodo didn't bother coming to watch, and since Riku has no one else coming for him, it doesn't matter if he's out of his depth. When asked for his thoughts on Misahaya, all Riku can say is wow, as he watches his opponent effortlessly take down multiple sparring partners at once. Round 1 begins. Despite the overwhelming odds and the psychological turmoil, Riku looks towards the ring from his corner and tells himself, "I got this." The bell rings for the start of the match. Misahaya steps forward with a confident smirk, while Riku looks on with trepidation. The fight begins and Riku is immediately outmatched. Misahaya's speed is overwhelming, and Riku thinks to himself, "I can't keep up with him at all." Misahaya's supporters in the crowd go wild, cheering for him and marveling at his incredible skill right from the get-go. Misahaya unleashes a furious combination, his movements a blur. Riku is completely overwhelmed by the speed and ferocity of the attack as he's pummeled against the ropes. A powerful blow sends Riku crashing to the canvas, his body twisting from the impact. Misahaya looks down on his opponent with disdain. He thinks how troublesome it must be for Riku to be limited to infighting with his non-dominant fist, and assumes the match is already in the bag. A smug grin spreads across Misahaya's face. He sees the look of a weakling in Riku and thinks of the saying, "hit without hitting." As Riku struggles on the ground, Misahaya's fans begin to chant, "Tsubasa, get rid of that murder," adding a layer of psychological warfare to the physical beating. As the blows rain down, a dark realization dawns on Riku. He thinks, "I learned how to punch a long time ago." In his eye, he sees the reflection of his abusive father. "In a situation like this where I keep getting hit, that's why you appeared, right, Dad?" The image of his father merges with his opponent, fueling a grim resolve. "All the more reason, then, to overcome my homework right now," he thinks. With a ferocious survival instinct awakened, he begins to push back, turning the one-sided beating into a desperate struggle. From the sidelines, the coach's associate watches in disbelief as Riku fights back, preventing a stoppage. He confronts the chairman, saying, "I thought as much. This might not even be a fight at this rate. Just what do you have on your mind?" The wooden clappers sound, signaling the final seconds of the round. Misahaya stands over the downed Riku, but the fight is far from over. Misahaya's coach is furious, screaming from the corner, "Misahaya, how long are you going to play around for? I thought you wanted to achieve a one-round KO for your debut fight." Misahaya retorts in his head, "Shut up, old man. I'm trying." He's been going all out since the beginning, landing punch after punch, but Riku won't stay down. He can't believe it. Despite all the hits he's landed, this pest won't go down, and now he's even starting to sting back. The chairman explains his method. The violent abuse of Riku's childhood, while teaching him fear, also forged something else into him. It forged a survival instinct, one that allows Riku to distinguish which attacks are too dangerous to take head-on. As Riku jolts Misahaya with a close-range blow, the chairman watches, thinking that if Riku can just show that instinct now, he'd be able to feel the danger right as he's being punched, giving him a crucial edge. With keen eyes, the chairman looks on, thinking, "Make best use of your past trauma, kid." Riku, bloodied but with a sharp gaze, stares down his opponent. The bell signals the end of the round. In his corner, Riku gets his bleeding nose tended to. The sign indicates 2 more rounds. His coach asks him, "Was all of that training for nothing?" From the stands, Naoshiro watches with deep concern as Riku is treated for his injuries. Misahaya gets an earful from his coach for not finishing the fight in the first round. Naoshiro, standing nearby, overhears and her anxiety for Riku grows. Misahaya glances into the crowd, his focus momentarily broken as his eyes land on Naeshiro and the coaches. He reassures his corner, saying he'll end it in round 2. He'd thought Riku was about to collapse at the end of the last round, but he can't be sure. Round 2 begins. Riku, battered and bruised, stands ready for more, his eyes burning with a cold fire. The associate coach asks if Riku is all right to continue. The chairman snaps back, "Don't pull him out, idiot." The chairman grins, "The kid's got a good vibe going on right now." And indeed, Riku comes out swinging, a completely different fighter than in the first round. Riku dodges a punch and counters with his own, showing a new level of aggression and skill. Spectators are puzzled by Riku's odd fighting style. He doesn't attack from mid-range, but instead tries to finish things with short, powerful strikes up close. They wonder what the prodigy Hyodo ever saw in him. An observer remarks on Misaheya's talent, noting he even fought Hyodo at the Nationals. Misaheya scoffs, thinking, "Are you idiots? Of course I'm better than him." As the brutal exchange continues, the associate coach turns to the chairman in disbelief, asking, "Chairman, tell me, how is this?" The chairman analyzes the fight, seeing Riku's strategy unfold. A tight defense and precise, systematic punches, right to the body, then left. Riku's eyes lock onto an opening, seeing his target. Misaheya's right side is exposed. Riku throws a powerful right straight. Naeshiro watches with bated breath. The chairman shouts, "Good," as the punch finds its mark. Riku's punch lands squarely on Misaheya's jaw, a testament to his newfound focus and the brutal effectiveness of his survival instinct. Misaheya is stunned, a thread of saliva flying from his mouth as his mind struggles to catch up with the sudden turn of events. Before Misaheya can recover, Riku follows up with a powerful left hook. Misaheya is shocked, realizing that Riku landed the punch without even looking at him. Riku lands another blow, sending Misaheya stumbling across the ring. A realization dawns on Riku. Just by looking at one part of his opponent's body, he can already see through the rest of his movements. He connects this ability to his traumatic past. Just as he learned to preempt his father's abuse to survive, he can now use that same instinct to anticipate his opponent's attacks. In Riku's eyes, Misaheya is just another threat to be analyzed and overcome. His traumatic past has become his greatest weapon. A powerful punch sends Misaheya crashing to the canvas, silencing the once boisterous crowd. Misaheya struggles back to his feet, enraged. He glares at his concerned friends, yelling at them to keep to their part, which is to be defeated. The two fighters meet in the center of the ring for a final, brutal exchange, a whirlwind of desperation and savagery. Battered and broken, Misaheya leans against the ropes, spitting out one last insult, "Why you, Thash?" But Riku's eyes are cold, unmoved. Riku responds not with words, but with a final, devastating punch, ending the fight with the same brutality it began with. The scene opens on a memory, not a boxing, but of a different kind of fight. Tsubasa Misaheya, with fierce concentration, dominates an opponent in a judo match, applying a painful armbar. His opponent, lying defeated on the mat, scoffs at him, muttering, "How laughable." But Misaheya, looking at his own hands that delivered the victory, seems less triumphant and more concerned, asking if the man is all right. The flashback deepens, revealing the immense pressure Misaheya has always been under. He's berated by his peers for not taking first place, even as an exam paper shows he is a top student. He pulls out his phone, a flicker of defiance in his eyes. Misaheya reflects that he actively sought the sad faces of his defeated opponents. He won again and again, finding their despair so amusing that he started to suspect they were faking it. But despite his success elsewhere, his heart was in boxing. He questions why. Even when giving it his all, he was still looked down upon in this one arena. The memory shifts to his childhood, taking his first steps in a boxing gym. In his youth, they told him he was special. He won tournaments, collecting medals and accolades, building a reputation as a prodigy from a young age. A drink is suddenly knocked over, spilling across the floor, a jarring transition that shatters the memories of past glories. The flashback ends, crashing back into the brutal present. Tsubasa Misahaya sits defeated on the canvas, his face a mask of blood and sweat, asking the same haunting question from his past. So why am I always looked down upon in boxing? Across the ring stands the victor, Riku Azumi. His face is also battered and bleeding, but his eyes hold a different kind of fire. In the ring, Riku remarks that boxing is a tough sport when you truly give it your all. But from Misaheya's perspective on the ground, the loss is unacceptable. He can't believe he lost to this person he considers a genius, Hyodo. A wide shot shows the final moment of the fight. Misahaya is knocked out cold on the mat as Riku and the referee stand over him. The crowd looks on, their faces a mixture of shock and disgust at the brutal state of the fallen fighter. The referee officially calls a stop to the match. From the crowd, panicked shouts of "Hey, call a stretcher!" are heard as Misaheya's fingers twitch, a sign of a severe concussion. His classmates watch in horror. A cold, unwavering close-up of Riku Azumi's eye as he watches the aftermath, completely unfazed. As Tsubasa Misahaya is carried out of the ring on a stretcher, Riku stands and watches, the banner bearing his defeated opponent's name hanging in the background. The announcer declares Riku Azumi the winner. His coach, Takarawa, approaches him and says, "See, things ended right away when you turned on your switch, kid. What are your thoughts on your second fight?" Riku doesn't answer. His mind drifts elsewhere. He thinks, getting punched mercilessly with no chance to fight back made me think of my dad. The image of his father's hanging body flashes in his mind. This fight has dredged up something from the depths of his heart. A dark, powerful feeling begins to unlock within him, born from the violence and his traumatic past. Alone in the ring, surrounded by empty seats, Riku stares at his own hands, contemplating the change that has just taken place inside him. He stands before his coach, a new resolve settling over him. He thinks to himself, "It's fine already. I can fight back now. Dad." With a calm, almost empty expression, Riku looks forward, his internal struggle resolved for now. He thinks, winning has become slightly easier now. Takarazawa breaks the silence, telling him, "Kid, it's also a pro's job to provide some fan service. Wave your hand at those people. Your classmates were really noisy during the fight." Riku looks over to see his friends cheering for him. The scene shifts away from the arena to a gym office. Someone watching the fight on a monitor comments, "I see. I knew Riku would win. Who was he fighting?" Outside, the sign for Boxing Gym Team OAS is visible. While Riku's victory makes waves, a new face appears in another gym. A focused fighter with long dark hair wrapping his hands. He hears the name of Riku's opponent and dismisses it contemptuously. Misahaya? Never heard of him. But Misahaya is far from finished. The final scene shows him in a hospital bed, heavily bandaged but resolute. He tells his coach his new plan. "I'll be training in the USA until next February. I'm leaving the Rookie King tournament registration to you, okay?" The rivalry is only just beginning. The scene shifts to Riku, battered and bruised, lying in a bed. Naishiro appears by his side, holding up her phone. "I saw your fight," she says. "The chairman told me to stay with you tonight." In a moment of quiet intimacy, Naishiro gently tends to Riku's bruised and scraped knuckles, cleaning the wounds from his brutal fight. Riku, however, pulls away from her touch. "I'll be fine. Return to your room," he says, turning his back to her. In his eye, her retreating reflection is visible. Naishiro is left speechless, a palpable distance growing between them. The next day at school, the fight is all anyone can talk about. Students whisper in the hallway, "Did you see the video of Misaheya's fight? That Riku guy, he's finally revealed his true nature. It looks like he could really kill people." The gossip turns more personal and cruel. What's the color of his blood? Heck, is he even human? Just what kind of parents must you've come from to become like that? A student's eye is wide with a mixture of fear and morbid curiosity. The chapter's title page shows Nashiro and another male student, illustrating the theme. the gazes of the surrounding, and noting the distance from their peers is now greater than before. A group of boys are huddled over a phone, watching the brutal fight. Naishiro, walking by, can't help but overhear their fearful comments, and a bead of sweat runs down her face. As Naishiro walks down the hall past her classroom, 2 to 2, she overhears more whispers. Everyone in our year knows about what happened there at Riku's fight. Naishiro sits at her desk, unpacking her bag, but her attention is on the empty seat next to her, Riku's desk. The classroom buzzes with mundane chatter. Students talk about movies, manga series, and the fact that they'll soon be third years. A scene of perfect normalcy, but Riku is nowhere to be seen. Naishiro overhears some girls gossiping, their faces adorned with strange stickers. You know what? Hiroshi's got an awesome fetish, one says. The casual cruelty and gossip of the classroom feels alienating. She sits alone, observing the room. She thinks to herself, it's the same atmosphere as always. Nobody is talking about the fact that Misahaya transferred. Aside from their eyes, her thought trails off as she's surrounded by the disembodied eyes of her classmates, all staring, judging, and observing her. She feels the weight of their gaze, a cold, piercing scrutiny. The eyes they look at me with, these are the very same eyes they look at Riku with. Her thought concludes as the scene finally shows Riku, sitting alone at his desk, isolated amidst the sea of his peers. The teacher walks into classroom 2 to 1, telling the students to take their seats. Riku looks on, seemingly unfazed by the tension. The classroom is filled with a strange tension. One student taps his foot nervously, while another looks pale and distressed. Suddenly, a student raises his hand, his face pale. Sir, I can't hold on any longer. Can I go home early? He asks, much to the teacher's surprise. Another student agrees. Me? Riku, sitting in the back, looks up from his desk, genuinely confused. What? Hey, what's happened to you all? He asks, completely unaware of the effect he's having. The scene shifts to the evening of December 23rd. Riku walks past a bookstore with a poster announcing recent boxing results from Karakuen Hall, including his own victory. Lightweight Riku Azumi, TKO, round 22M15S. Walking home, Riku reads a boxing magazine. He thinks of his coach, Mr. Takoza. I guess he doesn't read the magazines. Sending him texts must be bothering him too, I guess. Riku continues his inner monologue, admitting to himself, I guess that somewhere along the line, I regarded him as a replacement for my father, despite having no blood connection. As he walks, he suddenly stops. He sees a familiar figure ahead and calls out her name, Naishiro. She turns around, surprised to see him. Riku and Naishiro stand face to face on the cold street, their breath hanging in the air between them, a silent tension filling the space. Naishiro's mind flashes back to the fearful gossip of her classmates. She clenches her fist, the words echoing in her head. He's finally revealed his true nature. Can't believe it. Naishiro looks down, her voice full of shame. I am sorry. Riku. I couldn't say anything back to them. Riku, walking behind her, can only look on in confusion. Tears stream down her face as she covers her mouth, confessing her moment of weakness. Even if it was only for a moment, I looked at Riku with the same eyes everyone looks at him with. Elsewhere, a mysterious man in a suit takes a drag from his cigarette, reflecting on recent events. It's like he told me, I really can't understand what goes on in Riku's head. Below him, another fierce boxer is shown in the ring. The man smirks, a glint in his eye as he reveals a crucial piece of information. He's not just talking about any boxer. He's talking about the son of that damn Hyodo. He continues his monologue, musing over a champion holding his belt. He finds it strange that an elite like Riku would start from scratch in a small tournament like the Rookie King, calling him either stoic or just plain stupid. His thoughts conclude by comparing Riku and Misahaya to their fathers, noting how different they are. At the same time, Riku looks at the boxing results poster and says, nice. Riku stands before the place where his father died. He clasps his hands in a moment of prayer, the haunting image of the hanging body juxtaposed with his own bruised knuckles. After a moment of silence, he looks up at the desolate building one last time before turning to leave the painful memory behind. With newfound resolve, Rika breaks into a run through the dark streets, a voice echoing his thoughts. Let's win, the Rookie King. He's getting himself hyped up to win the Rookie King. The scene changes to a dark, snowy alley. A man is aggressively pinning a woman against the wall, their struggle leaving tracks in the fresh snow. The man, clearly drunk, tries to force himself on her. Wait, and my mouth. It hurts, she pleads as he suggests they go to a club. The woman desperately tries to push him away, shouting, Wait, you're too drunk. This is bad. I'm telling you to stop. I can't do that. Her pleas are ignored as the man looms over her. But in the background, a hooded figure is sprinting down the alley towards them. It's Rikudou. He arrives on the scene, his eyes wide with alarm as he takes in the assault happening before him. The woman looks up, a tear in her eye, as Rikudou runs closer. She reaches a hand out, a silent plea for help. Riku's eyes lock onto the scene, his focus unwavering as he prepares to intervene. The assailant turns, but it's too late. Rikudou is already on him, his hand grabbing the man's coat with furious speed. A close-up on the woman's face shows her flinching as the sounds of the swift, brutal intervention happen just off-panel. The assailant lies unconscious in the snow. The woman looks at Rikudou in amazement. In one punch, awesome, she says. But Rikudou, with a cold expression, questions her, I told you not to come, though. Then, what did you plan to do if I hadn't? Rikudou continues to lecture her, his expression grim. If he continued, miss, you'd be. The woman, however, just stares back at him. Ignoring his question, the woman gives a strange reply. I would have waited until he finished his work. Her eye reflects Riku's confused face. Still, she adds, I can't believe there are cute kids like you who are boxers nowadays. Before Rikudou can react, she grabs him and pulls him into a kiss. Riku's eyes widen in complete and utter shock. The kiss triggers a horrific, visceral flashback. A memory of drool and violation flashes in his mind, and Riku's hand begins to clench as a deep-seated trauma is violently reawakened. Rikudou violently shoves the woman away from him, stumbling backward and falling into the snow. The woman is thrown off balance, shocked by his extreme reaction. On the ground, Rikudou scrambles back, covering his mouth in pure terror. He pants heavily, his eyes wide with horror, completely overwhelmed and paralyzed by the triggered memory. As Rikudou lies curled in the snow, the woman's bravado fades, replaced by a dawning sense of understanding. She kneels down, a hand to her forehead, and apologizes. Ah, was that your first kiss? She tries to save face, adding with a smirk, but that sure hurt my feelings for you to be scared of me like that. Did you have a bad experience with sex before? She dismisses it as a joke, but Riku's terrified expression shows her words hit a little too close to home. Rikudou scrambles to his feet and tells her to go, saying he'll handle the unconscious man. Then, in a moment that reveals his deep trauma, he tells her, Don't forget to rinse your mouth. I might have transferred some of that old man's saliva to you. He walks away, leaving her to process his strange words. As he escapes into the night, the feeling of the kiss consumes him. He claws at his own mouth, horrified by the thought. Saliva? Someone else's saliva. Inside my mouth. The woman looks on, finally getting a glimpse into the depth of his pain. The scene transitions, showing the East Japan Rookie King tournament bracket lying on a pile of laundry, juxtaposed with a shot of the quiet, snowy apartment building where Rika lives. Meanwhile, the mysterious man in the suit from before is shown rummaging through a messy room. His associate asks if he found anything, and he replies coolly, There was an adult video. The man turns his attention to a weary-looking young fighter. Tsuwabuki, he says, Are you participating in the Rookie King? The man questions Tsuwabuki about his switch from kickboxing, while simultaneously being abusive towards another man, establishing him as a cruel and manipulative figure. The tournament bracket is shown, placing Riku Azumi against Koji Tsuwabuki in the first round. Tsuwabuki thinks to himself that in a world where fists are their only weapons, words are pointless. The man lectures Tsuwabuki about the difference between kicks and punches, telling him that he's just trying to make a name for himself in a new sport. He then holds up a photo of Tsuwabuki with a young woman and asks menacingly, "What will be left if you take away the boxing part too?" He then offers to give him a lesson. The man takes a boxing stance, a cruel smile on his face. "How about you show me what you've got?" The text implies this will be a lesson in brutality, something Riku has yet to experience. Back with Riku, he's running, trying to escape the memory of the kiss. It was like she was about to swallow me, he thinks, still shaken by the strange encounter. Riku is haunted by visions of his past traumas, his mother's tears, his father's drug dealer. He thinks to himself, sex really is ominous, as he connects the kiss to a lifetime of pain and fear. Returning to the gym, Riku tries to push the trauma aside. His coach, Baba Kichimura, approaches with the tournament ballots. Riku resolves to focus on the Rookie King. Kichimura drops a bombshell. "You'll face Hyoto on your second fight." Riku is stunned speechless as the name of his father's killer echoes in the gym. Kichimura shows him the bracket, explaining how unlucky the draw is. As Riku stares at the path ahead, he asks the most immediate question: "Who will I be facing in my first match?" Kichimura gives him the details on his first opponent, Koji Tsuwabuki, a former kickboxer with a 3-0 record, all by KO, but who still struggles to adapt his style to pure boxing. The narration implies that Tsuwabuki's raw talent is being held back because he is without proper coaching. A shot of Tsuwabuki highlights the immense challenge he faces. It's no easy thing to become skilled at fighting in a different martial art. The scene flashes back to Tsuwabuki's brutal lesson. His coach effortlessly dodges a wild, enraged swing. Tsuwabuki screams in pain as his coach counters, grappling and striking with vicious precision. The coach lands a clean, powerful blow, a perfect example of boxing technique that Tsuwabuki has yet to master. The brutal punch connects, sending a spray of blood from Tsuwabuki's mouth, a stark visual of the gap in their skill. Tsuwabuki is knocked out. His coach stands over him, casually remarking, "Whoops. I gave the finishing blow over-enthusiastically. You alive." The lesson is over. To the observer's shock, Tsuwabuki is already pulling himself up, using the furniture for support. "I can't believe my eyes." He's still standing after taking Mr. Takarazawa's knockout punch. Tsuwabuki, bloodied but not broken, looks at his mentor with a newfound respect. "You must be a former boxer, and quite the ranker too. It's my first time seeing such an efficient punch since moving to boxing." Takarazawa coldly critiques his student. "Your movements aren't compact enough, and you're SOSO when it comes to protecting your chin with your shoulder after your swings. You're not connecting properly." With that, Takarazawa lights a cigarette and turns to his men. "Let's go to the next one," he says, dismissing the brutal lesson as just another piece of business. Tsuwabuki can only watch, stunned. As he leaves, Takarazawa gives Tsuwabuki a final, chilling instruction. "I'll come to collect some bills again. Your punches better have improved by then." The threat hangs heavy in air. An establishing shot shows the humble exterior of the Tsumuji boxing gym, the place where Koji Tsuwabuki trains. At the gym, the chairman tells Tsuwabuki's story. He took on his parents' debts and is fighting to pay them off. He worked so hard that he would come to the gym stinking of his day job, a sign of his desperation. The chairman looks at Tsuwabuki's bruised and swollen face as he works the bag. "That face," he says, "do you think that's from an accident at work?" He knows the truth behind the injuries. The chairman is startled from his thoughts by the sound of Tsuwabuki wailing on the heavy bag, taking out his frustration and pain. The chairman notes the dramatic improvement in Tsuwabuki's form. The bad habits from kickboxing are gone. He wonders how he fixed his flaws so suddenly, just as he sees Tsuwabuki checking out a DVD of his first-round opponent, Riku. The scene flashes back to the bloody floor of the room where Takarazawa's lesson took place, a grim reminder of the price of Tsuwabuki's improvement. Takarazawa coolly hands a wad of cash to the man who served as Tsuwabuki's sparring partner. "That's 60,000, he says, payment for a night of brutal violence. Before leaving, Takarazawa delivers a final, brutal assessment to Tsuwabuki. "It's useless if I can read your movements. You'd be instantly killed by an opponent of C class or above with that." He then promises to return. A young boxer, perhaps Riku in a flashback or another fighter entirely, reflects on his next opponent. "My next opponent, he's from an orphanage." Aoi. He notes the determination in his opponent's face, a desire to climb up from nothing. In the final scene of the chapter, the blonde woman from the alleyway gently tends to the battered Koji, Tsuwabuki. "I guess he's hungry too," she murmurs, a small smile on her face as she looks at her companion. Oh my, what a coincidence. The scene opens on a man, sleeping peacefully, a rare moment of tranquility in a violent world. It's Takarazawa, a Yakuza enforcer, passed out on a couch. His associates remark on how rare it is to see him sleep like this, noting he's been running wild collecting debts at Tsuwabuki's place. Meanwhile, a coach and his student are studying a fighter on TV. They analyze their opponent, 17-year-old Riku Azumi, a southpaw who has won both his fights by TKO and is also a skilled counterpuncher. The scene cuts to the subject of their analysis, Riku, looking battered but focused after a grueling match. The coach notes that while there are uncertain factors, Riku displays high-end techniques, and more importantly, the formidable Hyodo has his eyes on him. Elsewhere, Takazawa confronts Koji Tsuwabuki, the student from before. He criticizes Tsuwabuki's sloppy connections, tauntingly asking if he's eager to get hit by a counter. Tsuwabuki walks away, reflecting on the strange feeling that this is a perfect matchup for him. He considers Takarazawa's words as homework. Just then, his coach calls out to him. The scene shifts to a group of delinquents. Their leader, a man named Bun, is making obnoxious licking sounds, clearly looking for trouble. Bun crudely tells Tsuwabuki to relay a disgusting message to his girl, boasting about the service she gave him the previous night. Despite the insult, Tsuwabuki keeps his cool. With a chilling smile, he agrees to tell her, adding a sarcastic jab, that maybe she just sucked him too hard. As Tsuwabuki walks off, one of the thugs mentions it's been a while since they went for Rina, and that she's been working less. They dismissively order Tsuwabuki to go get them coffees. Having reached his limit, Tsuwabuki snaps. He pivots and delivers a brutal punch to the face of the thug who ordered him around, his expression a mask of fury. The confrontation is over, but Tsuwabuki has clearly taken a beating in the process. Bun, unfazed, tells him to make it 4 coffees instead of 3, rubbing salt in the wound. Wiping blood from his nose, a battered Tsuwabuki quietly acquiesces. "Yes, understood," he says, his eyes downcast. Tsuwabuki opens a can of coffee, his hands trembling slightly, his face a grimace of suppressed rage and humiliation. Later, a visitor arrives at a residence. A young woman answers the intercom as Takarazawa stands outside, his face impassive. Inside, the young woman, Aoi, tends to a badly beaten Tsuwabuki. She holds his hand, telling him she knew it was too early for him to be getting into fights like this. Takarazawa enters, and a defeated Tsuwabuki explains that he wasn't able to collect enough to pay the interest he owes. Aoi stands up to Takarazawa, pleading Koji's case. She reminds him that Koji has his first fight in the Rookie King tournament soon, and getting hurt again will affect his performance. Takarazawa is unimpressed. He scoffs that he's never heard of a boxer bursting into tears just from being assaulted. In his mind, Tsuwabuki recalls all the times Takarazawa has beaten him down, mentally and physically. Takarazawa continues his brutal lecture, stating that Tsuwabuki's weakness made him realize that there are true monsters in the top rankings, and even more powerful boxers beyond them. Tsuwabuki stares into the darkness, seeing an image of Takarazawa looming over him. He feels that the path he's chosen is completely black, an impossible climb. His despair deepens. Tsuwabuki curses his situation, tired of the abuse and tired of having to rely on Aoi's earnings to survive. Suddenly, something inside him snaps. Tsubawaki lunges forward and grabs Tokorozawa, his eyes burning with a newfound fire as he screams that he'll break out of this hell. His resolve crystallizes into a powerful declaration. He will break out from the darkness with the only thing he has left in this world: boxing. His eyes are wide open, seeing his path clearly for the first time, setting the stage for his fated confrontation. As Tsubawaki weeps, having finally broken through his despair, Takazawa looks on with a faint, approving smile. Nice, he thinks, he has improved this much. With Tsubawaki's spirit now forged in fire, the narrative focus shifts, leaving him to prepare for the inevitable clash. The story shifts to Riku. His back is a canvas of bruises and bandages. A young girl, his classmate Noeshiro, points out some uncovered bruises and offers to help. Riku sits, his physique incredibly defined for his age. He thanks the young boy, Ayumu, who has appeared, ready to apply the patches. As Ayumu carefully tends to the bruises, he asks if he can get hurt during boxing too. Riku confirms, explaining that the mats at the gym are thin and he got hurt a bit during training. A glimpse of that training shows the source of the bruises: Riku being relentlessly pummeled on the mat by his coach, receiving body blows. Ayumu looks up and sees another girl from the orphanage, Yuki, watching them with a concerned expression. Ayumu notes to Riku that he seems to be getting hurt more and more lately. Yuki turns and walks away down the hall, and Riku watches her go, a thoughtful expression on his face. Back in the room, Ayumu asks Riku if something happened between him and Yuki. Riku, confused, asks why. At school, Yuki's friends comment on her strange behavior, noting that it's obvious she likes Riku. Ayumu reveals the rumor to a shocked Riku. Yuki has had prospective foster parents come to see her, but she might be turning them down. Ayumu continues, explaining that the girls at the orphanage have been gossiping. They say Yuki rejected all the potential families because she didn't want to be separated from Riku. Riku dismisses it as a misunderstanding, but Ayumu's words linger. He reflects that people can do anything for the person they love, a phrase he's heard on TV. The scene cuts to Tsubawaki, sitting in his bleak room, with Aoi sleeping beside him. He looks at a betting sheet, murmuring that perhaps the idea of sacrificing for love applies to her as well. The day of the East Japan Rookie King Tournament weigh-in has arrived, the grand arena looming under a cloudy sky. Riku and his gym mates, including Tsubawaki and his coach, ride a crowded elevator up to the event floor. Tension fills the small space. Riku and Tsubawaki stand side by side, a silent confrontation brewing between the two rivals before their official match. Tsubawaki's coach notices the fresh bruises on his fighter's face, the clear marks of recent fists. He seems impressed by the damage. As they exit the elevator onto the 6th floor, they are greeted by Mr. Baba, Riku's elderly coach. Tsubawaki, despite being covered in bruises from his work, politely introduces himself to Riku, who returns the greeting. Tsubawaki extends a hand. He tells Riku Azumi that he's heard the rumors about his upbringing and knows he's devoted himself entirely to boxing. Riku accepts the handshake. As their hands meet, Tsubawaki declares that only one of them will be rising higher. The rivalry is now official. As they walk away, Mr. Baba warns Riku to be careful. He had thought this would be a standard infighting match, but now he senses it might be far more severe. Mr. Baba looks at Riku, reflecting that his fighter knows what defeat is like. And that's not all. As Riku walks toward the weight room, Baba knows that he embraces some sort of dream. Meanwhile, the underworld story continues. An associate reports to Takazawa over the phone, detailing an incident involving Tsubawaki's girlfriend, Aoi, who works in the sex industry. The consequences are dire. Aoi, her face bruised, apologizes to a kneeling and distraught Koji Tsubawaki, telling him she's sorry for being a hindrance. Her light has been extinguished. The scene shifts to the East Japan Rookie King Tournament qualifiers. The assembly hall is buzzing with activity as fighters and their teams check in. Two officials observe the crowd, noting how unusually intense one boxer seems for just the qualifiers. They point him out in the red corner's waiting room, a lightweight division fighter. A close-up reveals the fighter, Hyodo. He wears a calm, almost smug smile, radiating an aura of supreme confidence. In Riku's waiting room, other boxers are gossiping about Hyodo. They're in awe of his connections, which include a former world champion and influential overseas promoters. Hyodo saunters over to Riku, who is warming up. Riku. It's been a while, he says smoothly, remarking that it must be fate for them to be in the same waiting room. Riku ignores him, focusing entirely on his preparation, his muscles tense. Hyodo watches, undeterred by the snub. As Riku continues his intense warm-up, Hyodo lets out a sigh. What a shame, he says, condescendingly suggesting Riku's opponent must be a dangerous one if he's brooding so much. Hyodo lazily lies back, holding up the tournament bracket. He muses that Riku's opponent might be even more so than you, who is already this tasty, showing his utter lack of respect. Riku finishes taping his gloves, completely absorbed in his own world. In the background, Hyodo stretches and yawns, the picture of nonchalance. The focus shifts, showing Tsubawaki's determined eyes. He knows this fight, a mere 4 rounds of 2 minutes, won't be easy. He sees the look in his opponent's eyes and knows he won't go down easily, if at all. He anticipates a brutal brawl, a full-power slugfest for all 4 rounds, right from the opening bell. A glimpse of the fight of another boxer, named Kuji, shows the brutal reality, a whirlwind of leather as 2 fighters trade heavy blows at close range. Kuji throws himself into the fray, roaring with effort as he unleashes a powerful punch. After the fight, Kuji is exhausted. His coach tells him to rest his body but not to let it get cold, preparing him for what's next. In a moment of introspection, Tsubawaki questions his own motivations. Is he fighting to take responsibility for Aoi? He concludes it's not that simple. He's fighting because boxing is all he has left. On the floor lies a crumpled betting slip. In a flashback, Aoi tells the bill collector, Takarazawa, that Koji has a fight today. She's resolved that Koji must succeed so he can take responsibility for her. Takarazawa learns that Tsubawaki isn't there. Unfazed, he sits down on the bed, declaring that he'll wait for him to come back. Aoi asks if he is interested in the fight. Takarazawa looks at her, and she reveals she knows who he is, a former OPBF world champion. She explains that in middle school, she was the manager of the boxing club. She knew of him, even though he had already retired by then. Takarazawa glares, questioning why she's saying this to a Yakuza just doing his job. Back in the present, Naeshiro confronts a blonde-haired young man in the stands, overlooking the ring. She asks about Koji's opponent, confirming he's a junior from his gym. She asks the young man, Tsubasa, if he holds a grudge against his own gym, questioning why he would send one of his juniors against another. Naeshiro's accusation becomes clear. She asks Tsubasa if he used Koji as sacrificial fodder for his dear junior, implying Riku. The tragic result of that machination is shown. Koji, battered and defeated in the ring, his hopes crushed. In Riku's mind, his coach's words echo, outlining the path ahead. Win the Rookie King tournament to become a Japanese-ranked boxer, and from there begin the climb to the summit, to fight for the belt. This is the first step. The moment of truth arrives. Riku and Hyodo face off in the center of the ring, the referee giving his final instructions. As his coach Baba watches intently, Riku's focus narrows, his determination hardening into a single, powerful thought. I will win. From the corner, Riku's coach Baba offers a final, grim piece of advice. Don't let him get you. Tsubasa watches with sharp eyes, acknowledging that Riku is an opponent against whom he absolutely cannot lose. Riku, in the ring, gives a determined yes, sir, to his coach. The scene flashes back to Aoi confronting Takarazawa, her eyes filled with accusation. She reveals she's figured out his scheme. He trained Koji specifically to put his beloved junior, Riku, at a disadvantage. Looking at an old magazine cover featuring them both, Takarazawa coldly tells her to shut up. The bell rings, and the fight begins. As Riku explodes from his corner, his only thought is to land a punch born of his own intention. Is there anything wrong with simply wanting to hit someone? The two fighters meet in the center of the ring, their eyes locked. Riku's jab connects. Riku presses his attack, throwing a powerful right hand that forces Hyodo to weave out of the way. Riku's punches are fast and relentless, a flurry of leather that whistles past Hyodo's head. Hyodo grits his teeth, surprised by the ferocity of Riku's opening assault. Riku lands a clean shot, and Hyodo is visibly staggered by the impact. Hyodo reflects on the punches he's taking. Riku's fists are sharp, he thinks, like a bladed tool meant to slash. He compares them to the fists of Takarazawa, which felt like a heavy hammer used to pound and crush meat. Hyodo categorizes the two styles, Riku's slash versus Takarazawa's crush. He acknowledges that while the quality is different, Riku is clearly no ordinary fighter. Riku's precision is unnerving. He follows Hyodo's every move, securing his target location without being off by a single millimeter, landing his hits for maximum effect. Hyodo realizes that Riku is effectively using 1-2 combinations as a counter to prevent him from getting close and turning it into an in-fight. He's impressed. Riku's style is far from the textbook theory of stopping an in-fighter with jabs. His punches have a peculiar timing, and he can read through a barrage to execute high-level techniques. A sharp counter from Riku lands squarely on Hyodo's temple, sending a jolt through him. Hyodo understands. Despite his youth, Riku has devoted himself entirely to boxing. He continues to press forward, landing a solid punch on Riku's body. Riku connects with a hard right, but Hyodo's expression remains defiant. Watching from the waiting area, Tsubasa makes an observation. Riku can't put him down. His punches are too light. Hyodo confirms this thought. For years, he's been receiving kicks far more powerful than any punch. In comparison, he thinks Riku's fists are extremely light. Riku is shocked. His attacks aren't working as expected. He's never felt anything like this before. The experience is unnervingly similar to his fight with Tsubawaki. But as Riku looks into Hyodo's bloodied face, he realizes there's something else about him, something fundamentally different. Hyodo suddenly explodes forward, trapping Riku against the ropes in a brutal clinch. From the corner, Baba and another cornerman watch with concern. He's got him on the ropes. He forcibly went for an in-fight. Baba is disturbed by Hyodo's ferocity and the way he goes for the finish. In the brutal clinch, a horrifying realization dawns on Riku. In Hyodo's savage attack and the way he goes for the finish, he sees the ghost of Takarazawa, the man who forged him in violence. Watching from the stands, the manipulator Tsubasa Misahaya smiles. He finds the spectacle interesting, noting how his opponent has taken to his style, his way of fighting. The brutal exchange is exactly what he engineered. But Riku's coach, Baba, sees the danger. As he looks at a fragile thistle, he worries. He knows that this fight, mirroring Riku's past trauma, is a double-edged sword. He fears that the kid's deepest weakness will be exposed because of it.